Hiya guys, it's Raz1 here again, and today I'm going to do my 2019 season review, and to help me along a bit, because, it would be better to do it with more than one person, rather than just me rumbling along and giving, giving you my thoughts only. I've invited my good friend Mike from F1 Fanatics. Thank you to have agreed to come on, Mike.
No problem at all, Raz. Thank you for having on. And in this long winter break, we kind of need to keep chatting to each other and help the days through. But yeah, it was a fantastic season. And really excited to kind of chat through a review of the season with you, Raz. And thanks for having us on.
No problem at all, mate. Do you know that we've done? I've known you. We've known each other for less than 3 months, but we've done the most collaborations out together out of anyone that I've ever collaborated with.
I mean, we've been busy.
Yeah, we've been doing. I think this is our sixth collaboration in 3 months.
It might be something crazy like that, but
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed our videos that we do together, and I'm really
Yes.
looking forward to chatting about the season with you today.
So just as an overview, it's been a season of highs and lows, really, and it's been a couple of surprises, and I really enjoyed the season actually. But let's get into this. So let's start with Alex Albon. First of all, first of all, I mean he started the season with Toro Rosso, and then he got promoted to Red, Red Bull. First of all, what's your take take on him getting promoted halfway through the season? Yeah, well, what's your take on that? And then how do you think he's performed overall?
I think Alex has had a very solid season. Um, I was a little bit surprised that they went for Albon over Kvyat because I thought at that stage Kvyat had certainly done enough to kind of prove that he was worthy having another look in the shot if they were going to switch halfway through, like they did midway through the season. I think Albon since then has been very solid. He hasn't done anything exceptional. I think people are only saying that he's got good performances because of how bad Pierre Gasly did in that first half of the season. From there, if Albon had had these performances all the way through the season, uh, even though for a rookie, you wouldn't have gone, wow, he's setting the world alight. You would go, yeah, he's doing okay. So I think his best performance of the season was probably his third race in China, where he went from pit lane to points. That
Yes.
was a very good drive from Alex Albon. I think he's had a good year. For me, he was at the lower end. I know he got voted Rookie of the Year, and fantastic achievement for him in his first season. He's done a solid job. He certainly put a lot of good foundations down for pushing on and progressing in his second season with Red Bull. And it'd be really interesting to see how he does next year, actually.
Yeah, I think I was quite honestly, I was really surprised that he did get the call up to Formula One to start with, because don't forget he was set to drive for Nissan in Formula E. Um, so he wasn't even planned to be a Formula One driver. Um, and I think that was a last minute, sort of last second almost decision to bring him in, because I I don't really understand why they, you know, I mean they took Gasly in.
Well,
And
it was the Daniel Ricciardo thing, wasn't it? And
yeah,
they clearly didn't rate Brendan Hartley.
yeah.
So therefore there were then two vacant seats. Kvyat, they decided to give a shot at one, and then they decided to take a punt on Albon, and he seems to have grabbed that opportunity. He certainly doesn't look out of place in Formula One at the moment.
No, I mean, I agree with you. Having said that, I mean, I can understand. I can understand why Albon got promote, promoted to Red Bull, the senior team, halfway through the season, because it is unacceptable for for a um for a teammate to get to, to be was it 2 seconds slower than Verstappen Gasly was?
I mean, he got lapped in two separate races,
Yeah,
and one of them Max Verstappen won in Austria, and I
yeah,
believe this other one might have been Hungary. I
yeah,
can't remember off the top of my head. But if you're getting lapped by your teammate, uh, Gasly was at a big disadvantage because his and Verstappen's driving styles and the type of cars they would like to drive differ so greatly.
yeah,
And I think you've seen by how well he performed. I mean, we'll talk about Gasly when we come
yeah.
on to it. But
But
yes, he wasn't great there, and
I,
Albon could only do better from that.
I mean, I think I was skeptical to start with because I thought, because when you were at the Red Bull senior team, as Albon is now, he's always supposed to be fighting for podiums and victories, and I thought it was a bit too early, but he proved me wrong. I mean, he got eighth position in the championship, 92 92 points, and he obviously didn't get any wins. He obviously didn't get any podiums, um, and he obviously didn't get any pole positions. But I was really disappointed that um, Hamilton punted him off, and because that would have been awesome for him to get the podium in was it in Mexico? Won it?
Brazil. It was in Brazil.
Brazil,
Second
yeah,
to last race of the season. And it would have been nice for Red Bull to have a 1-2. It would
yeah.
have looked nice for them on that front. But yeah, he was very unfortunate. But I don't think it'll be his last opportunity. His first task is he's got to be closer to Max Verstappen on track and to get better performance out of the car. But he's got a whole kind of pre-season now in the main team.
Yeah.
I think 2020 is going to be the real season where we can judge Alex Albon and how good he may be, or whether he's just a solid number two.
So coming, now that we haven't discussed his 2019 season, let's try and look ahead of where is he gonna be like in terms of performances or in 2020. Um, what do you,
Difficult one. Difficult one because I would. I see him finish behind Max Verstappen, and I can't really see him getting any higher than sixth in the championship unless um, the Ferrari and Mercedes really drop off. I,
yes.
I can't. I don't really see. The only improvement I see, he finished eighth this year, but obviously had half a season at Toro Rosso. But I reckon he's good enough to be solid to get sixth. I
Yeah,
can't really see him getting any higher than that.
I think I agree with you there. I think he. I mean, I think he's definitely going to get a couple of podiums this season. I don't think he's going to get a win, unless he Verstappen crashes and or retires from a race and he's in second position. Um, yeah, but I think he's we need to give him time to consolidate himself in the main team, as you said.
Yeah, yeah, he certainly has done enough to earn time and a chance at proving whether he's good enough.
Yes. So let's hang on. Let's move on to Valtteri Bottas. Um, yes. So obviously he finished the championship in as runner-up. He got 326 points, 4 wins, 15 podiums, and 5 pole positions. Um, what's your take on it?
I think this was Valtteri Bottas' best season to date in Formula One. I know, obviously, still finishing quite a long distance behind Hamilton. Doesn't really kind of show that too much, but it's the most wins he's ever secured in a season. He was pretty consistent and competitive throughout. Only 2 podiums less than Lewis across the course of the season. Matched Lewis Hamilton on pole positions this year. Um, I think overall it was a pretty impressive season from Valtteri Bottas, and I think a lot he might have even done better if Mercedes hadn't have given him that uncertainty around the Hockenheim, Hungary area where Toto Wolff wasn't particularly kind about him in the press, saying he had to be like fighting um, for his seat, which is fair, but it's probably not what you want to be hearing because he had a very good start to the season up until that, and so yeah, I think it just unsettled Valtteri a little bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, very good season.
yeah, I'm not too sure whether he is the championship material, championship winning driver, but he certainly has had the best season of his entire career. No doubt about it. Yes, and I agree with you about the. I think that what Total Wolf did was actually quite mean, and that was unnecessary type thing because obviously it I questioned whether he uh, was putting as much support behind Valtteri from the when he said that than what he should do, and obviously what he did uh, for the rest of the season. But I think these um, these comments was absolutely unnecessary. Um, he did prove in the end that he's a solid driver. He got as many podiums as Lewis Hamilton did. He got 4 wins, and I think he's a solid performer. He performed pretty solid. When you consider, when you consider even his personal issues with, I think he got divorced in Abu Dhabi just before Abu Dhabi or something, and he
Yeah, I'm not sure if they confirmed it, but obviously, yeah, clearly that would have been a personal issue that had been running
yeah
on for a while. It wouldn't have just come out of the blue, and I believe they're in the procedure of doing that. So yeah, that must have been tough for
yeah,
Valtteri as well.
but then I think he has definitely um, shown his teeth so to speak, and I think he can. He is definitely gonna. Well, how do you think he's gonna approach next season?
if Valtteri Bottas ever does have a chance at winning the championship, it's next season. I
Yeah.
think he's going to have his sole focus is going to be F1. Not that it maybe wasn't before, but he seems to have kind of found a happy place within Mercedes. And yeah, this is his last shot. So he will go all guns out blazing to kind of see, how he can be. He's really the perfect teammate for Lewis Hamilton because they get on quite well. He's similar height, similar weight to Hamilton, so it makes car development really easy in terms of fitting and building around it. Similar sort of driving style to Hamilton. So yeah, it's quite easy on that front to kind of get performance out of the car. Yeah, I don't know what next year holds. I don't know whether he will be able to sustain a title challenge to Hamilton, but I think it'll be an even better season than what he had this year.
Yes, and I think I tweeted it and or said it in my can't remember now, but I think I said it in my Abu Dhabi review. I said because if he because he won that race, didn't he? Um, and I think if he keeps on at this performances into next year, I think he could do Rosberg. You know what I mean? Because when you think about it, nobody realistically thought that Nico Rosberg would ever win the championship. Yeah, but he had a similar run to what Valtteri had towards the end of the season. So if you can keep that momentum going, then and hit hit Hamilton, hit Lewis hard, then I do think that's his best chance. Um, you know, I really want him to be able to fight for the championship because I think he does deserve it.
I think he's a great guy. He was a very highly rated driver before he joined Mercedes, but like Lewis Hamilton is on a different level to Valtteri, but it is hard to be as consistent as what Hamilton has been. So if there is just one bit of moment or weakness, he's got to be ready to take that. And I think next year's his best chance. But yeah, I think Valtteri is a very interesting one. But I think whether he wins or not, it will be his last season at Mercedes, and I think George Russell will be in that seat for 2021.
Do you do you think so?
That's what I think. So I think he will go out on a high as much as he can, and yeah, get as close to Lewis. Whether he can get anywhere near title contending is another issue, but he will certainly fight Lewis as hard as his ability allows him.
Interesting one. I mean, I didn't. I I I think it depends on whether he's gonna go, whether he's gonna challenge for the title or even win the title. Having said that, you are right. You know, winning the title does not necessarily guarantee you a seat for next season in that team. You know, look at Damon Hill when he won the title in 1996. Um, he won the title, and then Frank Williams got rid of him anyway. So interesting one.
Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one to see how it develops.
Yeah. So let's move on to Carlos Sainz. Um, I think he he had his best season today of his Formula One career. Obviously, he finished in sixth position with that mega drive, mega last lap in Abu Dhabi. I think that was absolutely epic. Um, he got 96 points in total. He had obviously he had that one podium finish, and yeah, so yeah, so and he had obviously that podium finish was his best finish of the season. But what do you think how of Carlos Sainz's season?
I thought Carlos had an absolutely superb season, and he kind of showed the benefit that if you put your faith in a driver, like McLaren gave him a 2-year deal, which really pre joining McLaren, he'd shown glimpses of being a very good driver, but he hadn't really necessarily merited the faith that they gave him in that long-term contract. And it shows that the driver psyche is kind of a very fragile ego, and if you can boost it up with confidence, you can get really good performances. And the McLaren turned into a really good car, and Sainz certainly maximised performance. Lewis is the obvious one to have as driver of the year, but Carlos Sainz was my driver of the year because I just think within that McLaren, the consistency to finish sixth in the championship ahead of two guys who did have half a season in a Red Bull car that is still a lot superior to
Yep.
Carlos in the McLaren, and that podium as well. Obviously, he started at the back in that race as well, so he went from the back to a podium. Was massively impressive performance. His consistency really impressed me. After a bit of a rocky start, he soon settled in, and yeah, was really brilliant, I thought.
I I thought um for me it's between um Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. Um, but I thought it was a really good season for Carlos because I think, to be honest with you, I think this season and where he's at now at McLaren, he really feels at home. Yeah, he's not under threat. He gets on really well with his team, mate. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen all the stuff on social media, what they're doing, and
Yeah, they have been a breath of fresh air, I think, on social media. They've been a great partnership, and
yeah,
McLaren really have kind of cashed in on that, and I think gained a lot of support from it as well.
and I think, to be honest with you, I think they Carlos and Lando are the only pairing of drivers that truly understand the fact that in order to bring get McLaren back to where they were, yeah, they need to work together and not against each other.
Mm,
Um, and I think they've done that brilliantly. Um, because I think in when he was at Red Bull, he never felt 100% valued there. Um, because I would have given him the 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 seat. I would have given him the a shot at the Red Bull seat. Having said that, I think for him to go to McLaren was was the best decision of his career because I fear had he not gone to McLaren, I think we could have seen a truly talented driver's career in Formula One cut short. Um, but I think that 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 drive in Brazil was absolutely epic. Um, I think it's well deserved. And then I think he's just gonna get better from there. Um, I will say about the stewards, yeah, I will say that I wasn't entirely um impressed with the stewards at that race because um at the end of the day, yes, he got the podium, but I think they robbed him of going onto the podium with the other drivers.
Yeah, like it was his first career podium. You know, that's going to be a special moment. McLaren's first since 2014. And they had a nice team moment together. And so that was nice. But yeah, he didn't necessarily get the applause and the recognition or that moment that he so deserved for his season that he had.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to put my, if I had to put money on it, I would say he is the one that, if anybody can, he is the one, together with Norris. Hopefully, Norris is gonna stay there for a long time. But he is the one definitely that can bring that will have his first win in a McLaren.
I mean, that would be incredible. Would be really incredible, and it would be an amazing story, really. And it would, yeah, it would be crazy in terms of um, how he was underrated. McLaren saw something in him, and he, along with Lando, drove them forward back to top. It'd be a really great story, certainly.
Here's a question for you. Do you think Red Bull are regretting the decision of letting him go?
Red Bull are, but I
Yeah,
don't think Carlos Sainz is, and I don't necessarily think we would have seen this performance from Carlos Sainz that we would have at McLaren, because you got to remember that Red Bull is Team Verstappen, and
yeah,
so everything is built towards him. Where at McLaren, he was given a very much, he was the kind of number one, and Lando was the rookie, and everything's kind of tailored towards him, or at the very least, it's a level playing field between
yeah,
him and Lando, which it wouldn't have been at Red Bull. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure whether I think he would have performed better than Gasly. I think he would have been closer to Max than both Gasly and Albon, but yeah, I still think it might have been difficult for him.
yeah. I think he's flourished, and he's grabbed that opportunity by the horns, and I think the fact that McLaren announced both drivers pretty early. I think there was weren't they the first ones that announced their driver lineup for 2020?
They were. Obviously, Sainz had already had his been given his 2-year deal at the start of the year. So it
Yeah,
was Lando who was on the 1-year deal. But yeah, they very quickly wrapped that up when obviously
yeah.
Lando had a strong start to the season.
Do you think that relationship is gonna stay between, like? Do you think their good relationship is gonna, that bromance is gonna like stay, or do you think it's gonna, as time goes on, and as McLaren go to the top more, or closer to the top, do you think it's gonna end up like Hamilton and Rosberg?
I don't think it will get as bad as Hamilton and Rosberg, but I'm unsure whether they can keep their friendliness, because at the moment they are both working together. And if the other one performs well, as long as the other one's close, it doesn't really matter, because their goal is driving McLaren back up to having a
Yeah,
car that competes for podiums and competes for race wins. At the moment, it's just the midfield. So there isn't too much stress or strain on that relationship. Where if it did get back to a podium and race winning car, the relationship could be strained. But they do have a very good relationship, and it might work out like a Sebastian and Kimi style relationship where they had two very good drivers
yeah,
there. The only problem there is that was a clear number one, number two situation. Sainz and Norris I think will always be equals going forward, and then that's when it's difficult. But I hope that it continues, because it'd be nice to see it continue.
It's like I always compare it, like, not, because me and you, yeah, we've both got YouTube channels, but at the end of the day, we're in it together. Sort of, if we
Yeah,
if my channel does well, you're not cheesed up with me. We just helping each other out. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
you know, but I suppose. Uh, in Formula One terms, it's a bit there's a bit more at stake, you know what I mean, than there is in YouTube, you know what I mean. So, but anyway, I think Carlos Sainz will do well, and I think he he's really flourished at that team, and I think Andrea Seidel, the new team boss, um, um, who took, I think he really values him. I don't know whether you saw the pictures um, he, um, Carlos posted on Twitter where they actually had a hug, and they were really happy together, and I think that's nice to see, you know, given that everybody sort of slaughtered McLaren, um, from where they were the last 3 years. So,
Yeah,
where do you think Carlos Sainz is going to be in 2020?
in 2020, I see him very much the same. If McLaren get car development right and take another step forward,
Yeah,
I can see them, and if Renault can keep up with them, because Renault are making some very good behind the scene things, I see them distancing themselves from the rest of the midfield and catching up with Red Bull, because I think the Renault engine is currently better than the Honda, but it's a big season for them next year. Um, yeah, be interesting. I would see him just competing at the top of the midfield again, and have him pushing for position.
do you think he's going to get a win?
I think next year is a step too far to think about that for McLaren. It would be amazing to see, and you can never say never in this situation, because until those first few races of the next season, we don't know how good the McLaren car in 2020 is going to be. But I would think the steps that they need to make to catch up with a Mercedes or a Ferrari, it might be a bit too much next year.
Yeah. Um, on the subject of McLaren, I think I think I think it hurt Renault really badly that 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 their customer team beat them by a country mile. Um, you know, but
It
what?
it did, but McLaren are slightly different, because I believe McLaren's budget is probably bigger than Renault's budget, and obviously we're not talking about McLaren as like a Haas or a Racing Point type team who are very early in their foundation. McLaren have been a cornerstone of Formula One for a long while,
Yep.
and it, yeah, I think it isn't necessarily um, the works team being beaten on that front there.
But yeah, so I reckon um, Carlos is gonna just flourish and do more of the same, really, because as I said, he's allowed, he's got the support that he needs now. He's got Zach Brown and everybody behind him, and he's got a teammate that at the moment doesn't give him too much trouble. So
Exactly.
I think he is a driver to watch out for, and he's definitely, if not my driver of the day, um, my driver of the season. Sorry, he's definitely a close second. But
Yeah.
final thoughts on him?
Just brilliant season. Excited that he kind of repaid the faith that McLaren showed in him. Really interested to see what 2020 and the future holds for Carlos Sainz and how good he can be.
Yep. So let's move on then to another young, another young hotshot, really, which is Charles Leclerc. He finished the the World Championship in fourth position with 264 points, 2 wins, 10 podiums, and 7 pole positions. I mean, I've only got one. I've My first reaction to that is wow. What's yours?
I thought it was an incredible first season at Ferrari, considering it was only his second season in Formula One, his first at a team with the pressure of Ferrari, going up against a four-time world champion in Sebastian Vettel, who at the start of the season was a clear number one, to beat him in qualifying and to beat him in terms of race wins and in overall driver championship was an absolutely fantastic achievement by Charles Leclerc. Still showed bits of immaturity at times and time to grow, but it's only his second season. I'm expecting to see that sort of thing from him. I just think, yeah, really fantastic platform from Charles Leclerc. Really impressive beating, yeah, the best pole setter of all time in Lewis Hamilton. Um, in overall pole positions across the season. I thought that was an incredible achievement by Charles Leclerc.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think he should have had more race wins. Um, Bahrain was the most obvious one for me. You know, but at that time his engine let him down. Um, Again, I think he did amazingly well with in terms of the pole positions. Absolutely quality. You know, can't say nothing against that. Um, the thing, the only thing that I will say about him was with when they when him and Vettel had that crash. Um, that unnecessary crash, in my opinion. Having said that, I think that was a 50-50 racing incident.
Yeah,
Uh, but all in all, I think Ferrari have got Ferrari have got a problem going forward.
they do, and I've said this before. My solution is if I was Matteo Binotto or if I was team principal Ferrari, I would go. Sebastian Vettel's contract runs out at 2020 at the end of 2020.
Yeah,
Put all your efforts behind Sebastian next year. Explain to Charles, go, look, we're going to give Vettel one more year. You're going to be number two, but then you're the future of Ferrari. If you just wait one more year, then we'll give everything to you and we'll get a solid number two in to support you after that. And everything's below that. I think it would be the perfect solution. Seb has a do or die kind of situation to terms of try and win the title. Charles Leclerc, although would be frustrated at not being the one back to win the championship, would understand because then the future going into 2021 and the future of the sport, he would be Ferrari's guy. So yeah, I think that's the best way to challenge the driver situation, but it's a difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari have really got to, have really got to think. Uh, is is he is Vettel? I mean, he he clearly got beaten by Leclerc, hands down. To be honest, I mean, I couldn't believe it, and you know, although Ferrari keep on saying, "Oh, their relationship is all hunky dory," yeah, everything is cool. They get on well. I don't believe it. I think it's all PR spin. I think Charles Charles knows that he's better than uh, Vettel. I think Vettel has lost his killer instinct. Um, I don't know whether that's because he's thinking about retirement or his family, or I just don't think he's got the heart in it in Formula One anymore. Um, but what's your take on it?
I think given the right car, Vettel still would be a very serious title contender. What you have to weigh up is Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen have perfect cars built around them,
Yeah,
and Vettel didn't. That Ferrari, you can clearly see, did not suit Sebastian Vettel this year.
yeah,
Um, the downforce on the car wasn't enough. He loves to have a car that he can throw into corners and can really trust through the cornering. That's where his success came at Red Bull.
yeah.
That's, the type of cars that he likes. The
But
Ferrari this year was so not that car. And, you
but then
know,
but then Charles Leclerc absolutely wiped floor with him.
but the car suited Charles Leclerc a lot better than Sebastian Vettel. I'm not trying to take anything away. Leclerc was brilliant, and Vettel had an average season, but he didn't do as bad. It wasn't an awful season, and I'm saying to compete. And your question was, in terms of, do I think he's got the ruthlessness to compete for a title? Yes, I do, but he needs to have the car around him. Whether Ferrari will ever produce that car for him again is another question. I think
Yeah.
2017 was probably the ideal one, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
But then here's a question for you, and I know this is going to be controversial. Controversial. Um, do you think by giving Charles Leclerc, by do you think inadvertently Ferrari have already put their eggs in one behind Charles Leclerc in terms of giving him, because clearly the car suited Charles like a dream, yeah. So and it didn't suit Sebastian Vettel. So do you think inadvertently Ferrari have already sort of started, um, sort of, I wouldn't say preferring, but sort of giving it inadvertent, giving Charles Leclerc sort of listening to him more than and adapting the car to his needs, because they clearly know that he is going to be Ferrari's future.
Maybe, sorry, maybe. Um, I don't really know what Ferrari did this year, because even if it was a car that suited Charles Leclerc, it wasn't a car that was going to be able to compete at the majority of tracks which you need to win a championship. So it was a really bizarre way that Ferrari went in development this year. I was confused. So maybe they have. And obviously, bringing in Charles Leclerc as early as they've done, which is very unlike Ferrari,
Yes.
it almost says a statement of they want this guy to succeed. And being the first driver to win at Monza since 2010 is a massive one on his CV.
Yeah. And
Potentially,
and I,
I don't know. Next season we'll be able to see.
yeah. So I think that was that win was when that that win was when Charles Leclerc announced to the tifosi that yeah um, Vettel was yesterday's hero, but I'm the new driving god, so to speak. Um, I think that was absolutely epic, and I do believe that. I mean, he let's face it, he won't pay for anything in Italy ever again.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Um, and as you said, it's only his second season in Formula One. Um, um, and and I think, in fact, I know Ferrari have never done that. Yeah, they've never put any anybody that young or that in with that few seasons uh, in in terms of experience. So they've actually took a risk on Charles Leclerc, in my opinion, but it more than paid off for them. What
Yeah,
do
I'd
you?
completely agree. It was a risk that was
Yeah,
it was a bold risk, but it's certainly a risk that has paid off. I think Charles Leclerc is looking like the talent that people thought he was, which
and
is great to see.
yeah, and finally, I mean, on Charles Leclerc, don't forget that 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 guy has had so much trauma and trouble, so on a, so much adversity coming up. I mean, he lost his father. I, I don't actually know when it was, um, but he lost his father in, was it 2 years ago? Was it? And then and
I
then
think it
he,
was 2 years ago.
yeah, and
Because
then he,
didn't he dedicate an F3 win to it or something?
yeah, and then he wins. He goes out and wins the race when his good friend Anton Schubert um, uh, got killed in a F2 race. I think, and I think it just he he always seems to deliver despite the the circumstances being harder. I think that that's another character trait from him. I mean, I I couldn't believe it when he won his first race on that weekend, didn't it? Didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And so you know, we must take this opportunity to give our give our memories and condolences to the family of Anton Juan Hubert, and don't forget Manuel uh, Correa, who is who is currently still recovering in in hospital. So I'm ho- I'm hoping. I think we all hoping that we're gonna see him him back in the sport. But the main thing is for him to get well again. And I think Anton Antoine Hubert would be is is racing in heaven now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It was a really kind of sad and tragic time for the sport, and it was a kind of horrible reminder that when they step out there, it's never totally safe.
it,
And every time they go on track, it might be the last. You never know in terms of circumstances that come. And yeah, Hubert, we were robbed of a talent in the sport that we don't know what he might have done within Formula One. We'll never know that racing career. And
yeah,
also with the more important one is unfortunately his family have lost him in terms of
yeah,
all the memories that they could have losing him so young. But yeah, it was him and Garsley's tribute to Antoine uh, was incredibly nice. And yeah, we can't forget about Correa. We hope the recovery seems to be going well. He seems to be pushing really hard in rehab, and yeah, you just wish him all the best with his recovery and that he can get back to racing one day.
yeah. I mean, but first of all, the most important thing is that he's gonna be all right to live and walk again. But I think what I, fo- what I found incredible, what I found incredible, um, out of this. I mean, this was a tragic event. Don't get me wrong, you know. But what I found incredible is the strength that that um, Leclerc took out from that to win two Grand Prix on the bounce after that.
Yeah, was was an incredible effort and incredible mental strength from Charles Leclerc to kind of dig deep, and one being the kind of the day after the accident, and two winning the biggest race that you can win as a Ferrari driver, which is Monza.
Yeah, and I, the other touching thing that I want to mention is because I thought that he would only. I mean, most drivers only had a sticker on to remember Antoine Hubert for that weekend, but I think I think Charles Leclerc has actually made a point in keeping the sticker on his in in his cockpit. I don't know whether you know the one I mean. I'm talking about the one where it says R.I.P. Tonio. Uh,
Yeah,
you know,
he
so
definitely has that, and I'm pretty sure Garsley still has something on his helmet. You know, those two obviously, he was a good friend of theirs, and yeah, they certainly remember him.
so so we're looking to 2020 now. Where do you think where do you think Leclerc is going to be?
Depends what Ferrari build. They've got two fantastic drivers, and if it suits one more than the other, then it's a flip of the coin between who will do better out of Leclerc and Vettel to me. I don't think Vettel is finished. I don't think uh, Vettel is easily beaten by Leclerc. It just really depends on the car that Ferrari build, and I have no idea what they're going to do. Whether Ferrari will get it right. They've announced today that the earliest out of all the teams of the release of the car on February 11th. So it kind of suggests that they seem like they've got everything together and organised. But yeah, 2020, I don't see it being a title challenging year, but I see it being another very impressive driver for the season for the Monegasque driver.
Yeah, and I think I think Vettel must absolutely um, get his skates on and think, do I really want to? have the chance of winning the title with Ferrari, because if he doesn't, then then Leclerc is gonna could wipe the floor with him. Um,
Yeah,
Especially because I mean I can remember Bahrain, the Bahrain Grand Prix that got away from him that he should have won. I don't know whether you
yeah,
can say. I don't,
yeah. I remember that. Obviously, um, yeah, it was massively frustrating, and he dominated all weekend from all the practice sessions to qualifying to the race itself. Had been completely convincing, and then something out of his control robbed him
yeah,
of the victory. And yeah,
but
was a really bad time for Charles Leclerc.
wasn't there another one that he should have won?
Um,
Think,
not
was
for
it?
me. People might say Singapore.
Yeah,
Uh, I I disagree with that. Vettel was just better than him on the day. Um, yes, obviously Vettel pitted first, but they had to
yeah,
cover off the Red Bulls, and
yeah.
I
I mean,
and also Vettel put in an absolutely immense outlap that got him ahead of Leclerc, and then he was quicker for the rest of the race. So Charles Leclerc had been very good, but Vettel was better, and Vettel is very good at Singapore, and that shouldn't be underestimated.
so I'm gonna go with four that he should have won in total, and you're gonna go with three. So,
Yeah,
um, but anyway, how do you think he's gonna start 2020? Do you think he's starting 2020 with I'm gonna go for I'm gonna go for a title, or do you think he still is gonna think, oh, I'm just gonna um settle in a bit more, given that it was only given that last given that the 2019 season it was only his second um, Formula One season of his Formula One career.
all right, he'll be pushing. Charles Leclerc, you can just tell, is an incredibly competitive young man, and feels weird saying that. I won't say that. He's an incredibly young driver, and yeah, he if he's got any sniff, any chance, he will be pushing from race one. He certainly will not settle.
Do you think his performance, or, do you think it even surprised Ferrari themselves?
I think it surprised Ferrari how quick that he showed his talent. I think they always knew what he was capable of. I think they were surprised how quickly he showed it.
Yep. So let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next one. I've got Pe- Sergio Perez on my screen for the next one. So, thoughts on him? I'll let you kick off.
A tale of two halves for this one, which can be said for probably a lot of drivers this year.
Yeah,
Obviously, with the financial difficulty and only being bought out by Lawrence Stroll at the end, obviously they were put into administration uh, in their Force India days. But as the car has improved and the development side of things is clearly shown with the investment and budget that Lawrence Stroll has put in, so is Perez's performance. When the car is better, Sergio Perez is better. And he, for me, was the driver of the second half of the season. He scored more points than any other driver in the midfield, beating Carlos Sainz, beating Daniel Ricciardo, Norris, Hulkenberg, anybody else in the midfield cars, Gasly, Kvyat, he beat them, yeah, beat them all in the second half of the season and was vastly impressive. So I thought Sergio Perez had a very good season and proved why he is a very good talent that we like having him in F1.
Yes, I think I agree with you. I think he's a solid driver for uh, Racing Point. I'm a bit surprised that he signed a 3-year extension with them, only because um I mean way way back I saw I did there's a video on my channel somewhere. It was called is is something like is is Perez Perez is his days in F1 numbered. Yeah, and I really did think that he was on it. He was um he was gonna retire in the near future, but obviously he likes where he is now. So
Well,
I was
he's only 29 as well. He's still relatively young in terms of Formula One drivers. I mean, he's 5 years younger than Hamilton, and you look what Hamilton's achieved in the last 5 years of Formula One. Obviously, I'm not saying Sergio Perez is a driver of the talent of Hamilton, but he certainly wouldn't have been looking at retirement, I don't think, this early.
no. But I've got two questions for you. I mean, obviously he scored 52 points. His best finish was a sixth place, and he finished in 10th position in the championship. But given that he has now um, signed a 3-year contract extension with Racing Point, do you think that he realizes that a top team is out of his reach now?
I think with all the young drivers about and linked to academies and seats available, I think he probably realizes that Racing Point is his most secure seat in staying in F1, and it's better for him to try and build Racing Point up to a competitive car and already be within the team rather than trying to get into a Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull and start from square one. So I think he was the realization of signing a contract extension with Racing Point was more to do with how he saw the future.
I think a bit of a plug at this point. Me and me and Mike have and Ash have recently done a done another collaboration about um whether um Racing Point can be a title contender. If you do want to give that a watch, I leave it in the card up in the corner there. Click on the eye. But well, coming back to Perez, where do you how do you think he's going to perform in 2020?
I'm really excited to see how he performs in 2020 because Lawrence Stroll is really backing Racing Point. Obviously, there's the rumours as well that he might take over Aston Martin and Racing Point might become Aston Martin Racing, which would be huge for the team in terms of going forwards as a Formula One team. And it certainly, I would imagine, would attract a lot of new fans to the team as well, as Aston Martin is a hugely popular
Yeah.
um, car brand. So I'm really excited to see how he does. I thought his performances in the second half of the season were brilliant and consistent. And if Racing Point have a great car from the start of 2020, he really could be challenging at the top of the midfield, which would be brilliant to see.
On the Aston Martin rumour, I've got a couple of questions for you. Obviously, Aston Martin is very closely linked with Red Bull currently. Yeah. But do you think? Obviously, that's gonna go in it. I mean, if Lawrence Stroll is gonna take over Aston Martin, I dare say that Aston Martin is gonna put cut all ties with Red Bull in it because they're competitors, aren't they?
Yeah, I think Lawrence Stroll would remove that branding from Red Bull, and that would be big for Red Bull because that's one of their title sponsors. And yeah, it could negatively affect the impact of Red Bull as well. So that would be not great for them. It would be a huge coup for Racing Point to have that sort of branding and name behind their racing team.
Yeah. I think yeah, the fact that Lawrence Stroll and his consortium did take over what was Force India, I think is going to show in 2020 at the earliest. Would you agree with it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they are compared to McLaren and Renault next year. Because obviously they have the Mercedes engine powering them. And
Yes.
that is a better engine than the Renault. If they can get their aero packages right, and if Lance Stroll can start helping out with the points as well, I think they could really put some pressure on those two next year if they get it right. But there's always a lot of ifs and buts in F1.
How? Here's a question for you. Um, how much input do you think um Sergio Perez has in that team?
Huge input. Because you know he's been a part of it for so long. Um, a lot of his funding that he brings with him helps with the development of the team and has done for a long while. So yeah, he's an integral part of the team and all its success today.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanna if you're gonna check out the video in I that I gonna link to, you obviously gonna see what me and Mike think and Ash think about whether Lawrence Stroll would um um get Rick Fire Lance uh to get the team up. But coming back, I mean, where do you think? Um, where do you think Perez is? Do you think he's gonna get podiums or
Not
next?
next year. Podiums are far beyond his reach next season, but it he's done it before. So if you had like a Hockenheim style incident or Brazil style incident, there is no reason why he couldn't take advantage of that
Yeah,
sort of incident and get a podium. But on out and out, it would be very unlikely that he would gain a podium next season.
yes. So, have you got any final thoughts on Sergio Perez?
I think he's had a brilliant season. I think, well, second half of the season, when the car's been beneath him, he again proves he's one of the most consistent drivers on the grid and consistent point scorers. And yeah, his tyre management, as always, is supreme. And excited to see what 2020 holds for Sergio.
Yes. So let's move on. I've got the next uh, person I've got on the screen here is the torpedo, aka um, Daniel Kvyat. First of all, I would love to. I would like to take this opportunity to say massive congratulations for him becoming a dad early on in the season. So massive congratulations to him and his um his his girlfriend Kelly. Um, so he finished the he finished the season in 13th place. He scored 37 points, scored one podium, and obviously his best finish consequently was a third place. So I let the guest kick off on giving me his thoughts about Daniel Kvyat.
Well, yeah, congratulations, and what a weekend that was for Daniel Kvyat, becoming a dad, and then obviously securing third place in that kind of chaotic race that was Hockenheim as well. Um, Daniel had a very solid first half of the season. In my books, I thought he did enough to secure another shot at the Red Bull seat. He was beating Albon expectedly, but he was still doing well and was the better teammate compared to Albon. Then second half of the season, he started off with some reliability issues and some issues that were out of his control. Then we saw a little bit of return to torpedo. There was obviously the Singapore GP incident with Kimi Raikkonen. Then there was the Mexico incident with Hulkenberg, and then the US incident with Sergio Perez. Was he just kind of showed a little bit of old Daniel Kvyat. I thought we kind of seen the back of that, but it seemed like he was very frustrated about being overlooked by Red Bull rather than, he needed to kind of buckle down, but it was tough. Red Bull have certainly played around with him a lot, and I think that takes a lot out of a guy to deal with.
Yeah, and I mean, congratulations on his third place in Hockenheim. I mean, you know, Murray Walker always say to finish a race first you have to finish, and there were that many incidents in that race. Um, I think he shown he showed his class that day. Um, I was a bit, I was very surprised when cause from what I thought, first of all, I thought um Daniel Kvyat was out of the running for the Red Bull seat, but then but then through Helmut Marko style he came out and said no uh no Daniel Kvyat is still in with a shout. So, what did you think about all that incident?
I don't think they handled it well. They played with his emotions a lot, like a roller coaster. In his home Grand Prix, where he was already having a rubbish weekend, where he took a load of kind of engine upgrades, and then they failed.
Yeah,
Well, obviously had engine failures and ended at the back. Had the whole incident about his home Grand Prix helmet because he asked, he wasn't allowed to wear it. Where I lost count of how many helmet designs Hamilton had throughout the year. So yeah, it was a
Uh,
strange one on Kvyat, and yeah, I really think the way Helmut Marko treated him wasn't nice and didn't sit easy with me. He didn't handle it in the best way, Kvyat. But with a team that's mucked around with him a bit, I don't necessarily say. I still overall think it was a very good season for Daniel Kvyat, especially considering he had a year out of the sport as well.
yeah, I mean, can I? I don't know whether I can say that, but I don't rate, um, I don't rate Helmut Marko as, I don't rate him because it really sets really badly with me as well. And considering that they've done it 4 times now, yeah, he's done it 4 times with him. I think whatever Helmut Marko says has to be taken with a pinch of salt. Um, and I think coming back to the helmet incident, like the helmet debacle, I think that rule is absolutely stupid. Um, because I mean, I watched Formula One for almost over 29 years now. Um, and I know what I don't use the helmet to recognize the drivers. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
and I don't think anybody. I don't think anybody does. Um, forget. Don't forget to mention the fact that you can't even see the helmet that well with the halo. So I reckon that's an absolutely stupid rule, especially if the drivers are prepared to pay for the helmets themselves. You know what I mean? So I don't think that. I think he should have been allowed to use it. And as you said, had it been, I mean, Lewis Hamilton, I don't know how many um, special helmets he had.
he just I saw several designs from him, but yeah, it was literally like if you hadn't turned up with a new helmet, they couldn't do anything about it. But if you requested it, then they would say no, and then you couldn't. And it just seemed a very weird loophole that's not really enforced. It's a way of drivers expressing themselves. It's a stupid rule, and hopefully it will be gone soon.
Yeah, and but do you think um Kvyat is losing his patience with Red Bull slash Toro Rosso?
I think so. I think I think it will be his not Toro Rosso. I think he likes Toro Rosso, but I think it certainly will be his last season there. I think he will be looking at other midfield teams with a strong performance in 2020 and to kind of push on from there.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, they've. I was really vocal about it when um I was really vocal about it when it first came out that he was gonna go back to Toro Rosso because I couldn't understand it. And if I was him, yeah, if I was Daniel Kvyat, I and this was the only Formula One seat that I could have, I would still told I would have still told him at Marco where to go.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, but at the end of the day, it was his only option back into F1, and he wanted to prove himself.
I think yeah, I think think Toro Rosso and AlphaTauri, if as they're known, next season, um, they need to really look at themselves and because I don't think the young driver program works, does it?
Well, you could say that only Max Verstappen has probably come through that because Vettel was taken from BMW Sauber, wasn't he? So Jean-Eric Vergne's gone on and become a two-time champion in Formula E. Sebastian Bourdais, he went and is a four-time IndyCar champion. So for producing F1 drivers, probably not. Brendan Hartley obviously won the World Endurance Championship, I think, twice.
Yeah.
So they've produced good drivers, and good drivers have come out of the program. But yeah, in terms of Formula One, it isn't necessarily working, and certainly that's where Helmut Marko's main focus is, and you can say that's probably where the least success has come from.
Yeah, but as I said in on many, I don't think I've ever said it in a video I did with you, but I think Helmut Marko is doesn't want to admit that he's made a mistake. Like, I think Kvyat never had a real chance of getting back into the seat because that would have just proven that Helmut Marko was wrong in his assessment of Kvyat.
Yeah, no,
So
I can see that. I mean, Helmut Marko is terrible for the PR of Red Bull, and I don't think he's done Kvyat there. But back on kind of the 2019 season and looking forwards, yeah, I just think Kvyat will use Toro Rosso for the platform that he has to kind of show off his abilities. I think we'll see next year more of a season like the first half of what we saw from Daniel
yep.
Kvyat rather than the second half, and I think he'll push on.
But yeah, I mean, we mustn't forget the third place. That was absolutely epic, and you know, let's just wish all three of them um, nice a nice Christmas and a nice holiday, and I hope I hope the baby is healthy and all the best to them of him being a dad, and I really think that he's since he's come back, I think he's a different person. Yeah, because I was worried for his mental mental state when he back when he got fired, when he got demoted and kicked off of Formula One back in the day. So I reckon he's really shown that he's got what it takes, and he's ready to prove to the world that he has got what it takes.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree.
So yeah,
No,
have you
I
got
was just going to say, completely agree. It was fantastic performance from him,
yeah?
and he does seem a much more driven and yeah, excited person.
So any final thoughts on him?
Just, I think it was a mixed season for Daniel Kvyat, but certainly a lot of positives looking ahead towards 2020.
Okay, so let's just see who we've got next. We've got George Russell next on the screen. Obviously, he finished his debut season last. He scored no points, no podiums, and best finished best finish of the season was an 11th place. As usual, I'm going to give Mike first word on it because he's the guest. So we'll take it away.
George Russell, considering the machinery that he was in, I thought had a fantastic rookie season. He beat his teammate 21-0 in qualifying and 17-4 in races. It was an incredible effort from George Russell in such a difficult car as well, because sadly that Williams just hasn't been competitive at all.
Yes.
I think he needs to get out of an uncompetitive car as quickly as possible, because the more you are, the more damage your reputation takes. But also very impressive for him was he topped Abu Dhabi testing in the Mercedes after the end of the season. And I just think George Russell, I was more impressed with George Russell's season than I was Alex Albon's season, because when people were at the back, he managed to finish ahead of a Haas and Alpha at times. Within it, sometimes they were damaged, but sometimes he was just really good racing and putting in good laps and keeping behind. And he was just so close also to getting that Williams into Q2 in Hungary as well. So that would have been an incredible achievement. But just to get even close, I think he was about 600ths of a second off. So very close. It was vastly impressive first season for George Russell.
I mean, I was going to put a bet on that. Literally, I was going to put a bet on him actually doing it. But I was like, I was glad I didn't. But, awesome to see him out qualifying Robert Kubica 21 to 0. As you said, I'm a Williams fan, yeah, because I've been to the factory and stuff. I've got a nice letter from Claire Williams. Again, if it's on my channel somewhere under the story behind the autograph. Go and check that out if you haven't. But coming back to George Russell, I think he did an outstanding job given the machinery he's put in. He has at his disposal, and I think Mercedes have got a massive dilemma come 2021, if not before, in terms of whether they're going to keep Valtteri Bottas or putting George Russell in, because George Russell and alongside Lewis Hamilton would just be epic. But anyway, what do you think about it?
I think he will go to Mercedes, because I think Mercedes will look and they'll see Red Bull obviously have the young driver in Max Verstappen. Ferrari have the young driver in Charles Leclerc. And they're like, well, Lewis Hamilton is fantastic. If we can get George in to learn from Lewis Hamilton, he is a champion of the future. I think he at least has the attributes to be a champion of the future, George Russell. I think he's a very talented young guy, but not to kind of. It's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Would he be able to do it over the course of a season? He had a very impressive GP2, F2 win last year. So can he carry on doing that? It's going to be really interesting to see if Williams are more competitive next year, and if they are, what he can do in that car.
But I ask you the question: do you really think they're gonna be?
What, Williams?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna go with yes.
Here's a question for you. How much money would you be willing to put on it?
Not much. But I'm gonna be positive and say they will do it.
By the way, we're not we're not advertising gambling here. I mean, gambling is bad, but just having a bit of fun. But I think Williams needs to back the ideas up, and because otherwise, I can see George Russell doing what Esteban Ocon has done last year. Oh, this year, shall I say, in 2019, and be the third driver for Mercedes, and then in 2021 replace Valtteri Bottas. So
Yeah, I do think he will replace Valtteri Bottas in 2021.
yeah,
I just think everything looks lined up to be that way. The young talent's been given an opportunity. They've seen what the likes of Max Verstappen can do, the likes of Charles Leclerc, and George Russell is certainly a talent coming through. And Lando Norris, it's whether McLaren can build him a car, and then you can obviously throw him into that as well.
but I don't think Lando Norris would go to Mercedes.
No.
No. So,
Well, if they were competitive and winning, then yeah. But I think he would love to do it with McLaren.
yes. So, um, where do you think he's gonna? Where do you think, and how do you think he's gonna perform in 2020?
All depends on the car. I think he will convincingly beat Latifi. I think in both qualifying and race, whether he can get a championship point all depends on what Williams produce next year. Um, they've got a whole year's worth of data. Of the tyres, of everything that goes. No rules and regulation changes. They would have started development very early on in this season. Hopefully they can get it right and at least compete in the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I want nothing more. I've, as I said, I've been there on the 13th of October 2013, and I had the best 6 hours of my life. Um, so I really want Williams to do well. Um, you know, the other thing that I want to ask you about is in terms of um how long Russell is going to stay at Williams is because I've heard that I was under the impression that Claire Williams said that Russell has been contracted to Williams for the long term.
3 years, I believe, he was contracted. But obviously, contracts are contracts, and there is always a way around them.
I can see them doing a swap.
Russell for Bottas,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yep. And
In
then
fact, in 2020, in my mid-season predictions this year, I thought it would happen this year that Ocon would go to Mercedes and Bottas would go back to Williams.
yeah. Um I had something similar, I think, but um but any final thoughts on Russell?
exciting talent. Interested to see how he progresses through 2020 and whether he can secure the Mercedes seat in 2021. But incredible achievement in his rookie season to out-qualify his teammate in every single session of the year.
I mean, the final thing I want to say about him, he's the most positive. He's the most positive driver, young talent I've seen, considering that this year's Williams has been a dog of a car, but he's never really criticised the team. He's always said, "Oh, we're working on it." He's never. I think he, he's a very good um, diplomat, and I think he's never publicly criticised the team.
Yeah, he's very good on the PR front. He's very respectful of Williams, and that has to be admired and respected, I think.
Yeah, and I think if anything, that Williams, the current situation is a perfect learning ground proving ground for Russell, because you know um, if he's not uh, if he's not slagging off Williams publicly, the and he learns his craft, and not only his racecraft but his sort of PR, how to sort of behave. I think that's gonna set him in good stead um for the future, which undoubtedly will be with Mercedes.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yep. So let's move on to the next driver, shall we? Um, guess who I've got on the screen next?
Lewis Hamilton.
No, it's
Oh,
it's we all know who another YouTuber who is a famous fanboy of that driver.
Roman Grosjean.
Yes. Well, I I will let you kick off because you're my brother. So take it away.
So, Roman Grosjean has had an incredibly difficult year. I think it's harsh to judge either of Grosjean or Magnussen too harshly this year because it's been a real dog of a car. Because unlike the Williams, where they've known it's just uncompetitive from the start, the Haas started being best of the rest. Kevin Magnussen finished best of the rest in Australia. And it was a quick car. It was a quick car through testing. Just as the season's gone on, they've really struggled with the tyres, how to get performance out of the tyres, how to improve the performance of the car. Grosjean has been integral in helping them get any sort of performance out of the car. He's been really vital for that. A lot of his issues were mechanical. The collisions that he's had with Kevin Magnussen, they've just been racing incidents. I wouldn't necessarily judge him too harshly on that. I think it's been a really tough year for Roman Grosjean. A lot of people were surprised that he was retained. I wasn't. I see the merit that there is in Roman Grosjean, and I think he's a very, very talented driver, and he's a driver who could get some really big performances for Haas. It's just, it's been a real tough year for the team and for Roman Grosjean.
I don't know what to add to that, because that is absolutely what I would have said. Obviously, he got position 8 18 in the championship. He had a mere 8 points. He had 0 podiums, and his best finish was a 7th place. The only thing that I will say about him is I'm gonna say two. I'm gonna say two things. He is great when it comes to a team player because I don't know whether you remember, but he like when they lost when they had the pit stop issue in in uh, in Australia, when they lost the when the wheel came off, he was consolidating the the team member, and I think that showed his class. Um, but then he don't forget, was it this year that he almost got a ban for driving
No,
late? Was it?
it
It was
was Vettel who almost got a ban this year.
yeah, yeah. But he he need he I was really surprised that he was retained. Um, but then on the other hand, I think Gunter Steiner and Gene Haas actually knew realized that he took a risk when he joined Haas. Um, back in 2000. Well, it would have been 15 going into the 16
No,
season.
I believe, yeah, it was 2016 was the
Yeah,
season.
yeah, but you would have signed the contract in 2015, obviously, for the 16 season. So um, I was I was I was surprised, but not really um too surprised. On the other hand, um, I think the only negative that I've got to say about Roman Grosjean, or not even negative, but the can you do you remember the crash he had in the pit lane?
Yeah, yeah, where he spun out and lost the front wing.
Yeah, rookie mistake that was.
Yeah,
Um, but where do you think? How do you think he's going to do in 2020?
I think I don't know because I don't know how well Haas are going to do as a team. So if there is anyone that I wish to do well more than anybody else next year, it is Roman Grosjean because I think he gets a lot of unfair flack. He's a driver who hasn't fulfilled his potential, but he is still a very talented driver and still a very quick driver. And I think people often forget that.
Yeah,
Yes, he got the race ban in 2012. Yes, 2018, that incident in Spain wasn't great, but we've seen incidents like that from other drivers on the grid. Sebastian Vettel this year in Monza wasn't a great incident with spinning around. There have been drivers who make mistakes, and unfortunately for Grosjean, his mistakes seem to be a little bit more high profile
yeah.
than any others. But I
And
really want him to show his ability and to kind of be consistent next year.
my argument to that is, if you haven't got a driver that makes mistakes, you haven't got a drive. That driver isn't trying hard enough.
Yeah,
So, but yeah. I mean, what was you obviously weren't too surprised, were you, that he was gonna get another contract extension?
I think, with all things considered, I was like, Nico Hulkenberg would be expensive. Haas are a really unique team because they're not like another team because they buy a lot of their parts in. They get their chassis made for them by Dallara, whose team out. It's a kind of really different environment to work in and get used to. And Haas can't really afford a driver to transition through that. Nico Hulkenberg may have adapted to it quickly, but they know Grosjean would have adapted. Well, doesn't need to adapt at all. Plus, Grosjean has helped a lot with the development of the car this year and has a lot better understanding than what a Nico Hulkenberg would. I mean, all things point to, yes, Nico Hulkenberg is consistent, but that's pretty much the only thing for me that he had over Roman Grosjean in terms of what you could clearly say he was better at. Nico Hulkenberg consistently scores you points, but outside of that, I'm not sure what he would have brought that Roman Grosjean doesn't already bring to the team. Plus, he would have been a lot more expensive than Roman Grosjean. So, yeah, it just seemed a sensible decision by Haas, especially as their main title sponsor in Rich Energy was dropped.
Well, they weren't dropped really, were they? They've terminated. They terminated their contract with them, didn't they?
Yeah, whatever the Rich Energy debacle was, that was just
yeah.
mayhem for Haas.
You know, touching quickly on that thing, that I think Haas need to be careful who they're dealing with next time.
Yeah, I'd agree.
You know, because they are a Formula One team after all. Yeah. And I'm not saying they are, you know, they they're not a team on their own, but don't forget they've also got massive ties with Ferrari. And I don't know how happy Ferrari were about the whole Rich Energy debacle. You see what I mean?
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone in Formula One was happy with how that went.
Yeah. But then again, I really hope that Roman Grosjean is gonna get a better season next season. Do you think, looking beyond 2020, do you think 2020 is his last sort of last last chance saloon sort of thing?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I said earlier, I think he is unfairly judged, but also it's been a long time since those really exciting days at Lotus where he was matching Kimi Raikkonen for pace at times and obviously securing those 10 podiums that he did early on in his career. For me, for a driver of his age and experience now to stay in the sport with all the young talent coming through, I just think for him, yes, it is a last shot saloon. He's failed to live up to his potential yet, but if he could have a really kind of great season next year, it certainly would be something to encourage Haas, keeping both him and Kevin Magnussen going into the 2021 season.
And you know, I think I agree with you. Final question about Roman Grosjean. Do you think he is he's in a similar situation from than the similar situation as Sergio Perez is currently in that Haas is the the best he can hope for in terms of he's not gonna go up. He's not gonna get into a more competitive team.
I think when he moved to Haas, it was in the hope that Ferrari would one day come calling. But I think that ship has probably sailed for Roman Grosjean unless he can have a very good year next year and the Vettel leaves Ferrari and Ferrari make Leclerc number one and want a number two. And if Grosjean can prove consistency next year with pace, maybe he could go and do what Kimi Raikkonen did for 2 or 3 seasons with Sebastian Vettel.
Yes. Any final thoughts on Roman Grosjean?
A difficult and frustrating year. Hasn't really done too much wrong, but hasn't really had the car to do too much right. Unfortunately, a lot of his mechanical problems happened when the car was actually competitive. So he was stuffed on that front. 2020, yeah, it's a make or break year and could very well either way be his last in F1. So be very interesting to see how he performs.
Yes, I agree with you. And all the best to Roman Grosjean. I think one person that was definitely happy to see Roman Grosjean uh, being kept in Formula One is Dan from F1/E reviews. If you haven't already, do give him his channel a visit. I've never collaborated with him, but I would definitely love to collaborate with him. We have chatted on Twitter a few times. He absolutely loved the fact that I called him an Formula E expert. Um, you know, uh, so so if you're listening to this, Dan, get in touch with me, and maybe we can collaborate in the future. All right. So the next person on my list here is the 2019 world champion. That is Lewis Hamilton. Again, do you want to go first, Mike?
I'm very happy to go first again, Raz. So, Lewis Hamilton, 6-time world champion, pretty much flawless season. Hockenheim was a low light. Austria, the engine didn't really perform, and then finished off the podium in Brazil because he went for a bit of a bold overtaking move, too bold, and obviously compromised Alex Albon's race. But again, winning the title in the US Grand Prix, winning the constructors again with Mercedes, utterly dominant for Lewis Hamilton, and it was incredible to watch. And he basically won the championship in the first half of the season when he was so consistent. When Ferrari and Red Bull weren't really kind of getting things together, he got himself an incredibly big lead, and yeah, was vastly impressive throughout the whole year. Lewis Hamilton keeps being more and more impressive season to season.
Yeah, I mean, let's just give you a rundown of the stats here that have been provided by Mike himself. I mean, I would just like to give you a quick shout out for these lovely graphics. I couldn't have done them, and I really love them. But anyway, Lewis Hamilton obviously won the championship. He scored a total of 413 points. He had 11 wins, a total of 17 podiums, and 5 pole positions. Um, from my point of view, absolutely flawless, absolutely flawless. The you know, um, I think he he is definitely on course to becoming the greatest, the 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 out and out greatest Formula One driver of all times. He is, from what I gather, he is it he is 7 away from Mike Michael Schumacher's 91 race victories in Formula One, and he's if he wins another 8 um, Grand Prix, he will have eclipsed Mike Schumacher with the most career wins. Um, I think he is absolutely dominant. I would just like to say, because I've had a lot of stick every time I've been making videos about Lewis Hamilton. Um, I'm not a Lewis Hamilton hater at all. I respect the guy tremendously. Mike can verify that. Can you, Mike?
I can verify.
Yeah,
Raz always talks positively about Lewis Hamilton. You just have you just had a specific view on his things outside of Formula One. You
yeah.
never criticise him as stuff driver, which you're entitled to your opinion on,
Yeah,
as is everyone else.
but then we keep it in the we keep it strictly on track now, because at the end of the day, what anybody does in their private life is none of our, nobody else's business. Um, um, yeah, I just think he he's an he's a phenomenal personality. He does do a lot for charity, and I find it really, really impressive that he said in an interview with Ted Kravitz, I think. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, "I'm still, I feel energized now, and I'm not done with Formula One by for a long time yet."
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what he does next year with Lewis. Can he match that Schumacher record and then set himself up for the new era of Formula One in 2021? Can he still be at the front with all these exciting young talent through? I mean, Lewis, you just wouldn't bet against him, would you? Because what he does on track is just great. He makes great decisions off track and is incredibly consistent on track.
Yes. Um, would you bet against him winning his 7th world title and matching my hero Michael Schumacher next season?
Look, you're going to make me out to be the bad guy here. Obviously, I liked Michael a lot when I was growing up as well, but didn't probably start following really till he'd retired. But Lewis,
That can I just say that wasn't intended, by the way.
no, I know it wasn't. Um, yes, I think Lewis will match it next year. Just because I can't trust Ferrari to get it together, and the Honda engine isn't good enough yet to power Max Verstappen to the title.
Um, and and how will you feel if he does match um, statistically the best and most successful Formula One driver of all times, the great Michael Schumacher.
Do I think he'll be the greatest of all time?
How will you feel when he finally matches him? Um, do you think? How will you feel if he was to win another championship after that?
I mean, just utter admiration would probably be the feeling for someone to be as successful in Formula One as what Lewis Hamilton has been. I don't think you can feel anything other than utter admiration for the achievement he's done. It'd just be incredible. And it would have been incredible that I've watched Formula One for his entirety of his career. It's a bit like a quick football reference of being around in the lifetimes of watching Ronaldo and Messi. You know, these are once in a generation talents, and you've witnessed them. You're not hearing about it like for me, Michael Schumacher or the Sennas or the Prosts or the Lauders. For me, I'm actually witnessing history being made season by season with Lewis Hamilton, and yeah, it's incredible to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I will. If that happens, I will. I will. I will probably cry. Um, Not because, again, before anybody says accuses me of being a Lewis Hamilton hater, I'm not a Lewis Hamilton hater. But the reason why I'm gonna probably shed a tear is because Michael Schumacher is my hero. Um, and and you know, to have that record being taken away from him will sort of make me slightly upset. But yet again, I would much rather see Hamilton take it than anyone else.
I think Hamilton has earned. I think for anyone, as much as I know Schumacher is your hero and he means so much to you,
Yes.
I think for anyone to get as close to matching him like Hamilton has, and if he surpasses him, I think you just have to, like you said, you've got to want it to be him because it's an incredible achievement that he's got 6 to go 7, potentially 8. I mean,
Yeah.
even Michael Schumacher would be applauding, going,
Yeah.
that
And
is incredible.
I think if whatever his lifestyle is, forget his lifestyle, forget his vegan on, forget all that. The geezer, the geezer is a once in a lifetime talent, and he loves the sport. And as much as I said before, like as much as I said he could go to Ferrari in 2021, yeah, I think he. I'm not too sure now because I think he's gonna stay with Mercedes for as long as they want him, basically, or for as long as um Ferrari as for as long as Mercedes want him, and I think he's got a he's got a massive chance of be, becoming a brand ambassador after his Formula One career for Mercedes.
Yeah, I can certainly see him just maintaining his link. Mercedes have given him everything through his career. They've powered his McLaren winning championship car in 2008. And, you know, they've been the team that he's got the majority of his success, his further 5 world championships with, between 2014 and 2019, and maybe even more to build on top of that. You never know what the future holds.
So,
But it's he definitely is. Yeah.
just a quick question for you. You know, he tested a Valentino Rossi's bike yesterday.
Yeah.
Did, did I read? Did I read somewhere that he crashed it?
He didn't. He didn't. It was a fake news report.
Okay.
It went well, so I'm excited to see the footage of it. I think it'd be something quite cool.
So he didn't crash it?
No, he
No,
didn't.
because I was like, put a tweet on, say, you know, because I just caught the headline. You know, I didn't have time, but as long as he didn't crash in, it went all right. That is the main thing. Um, Now, how do you think 2020 is going to go for him?
I think I said it. You wouldn't bet against him. At this stage, I've seen nothing from Red Bull and Ferrari to convince me that they will beat Lewis Hamilton. So for me, it's world championship number 7.
Yeah, but I'll make it a bit easier for you. I think we both agree that he's gonna win. He's got in. You wouldn't bet against him winning the title. But I actually want to know from you, by how many points do you reckon he can increase it by? Or how many wins, podiums is he going to get?
I think it's going to be closer. I don't think he'll be as dominant as what he's been this year, but I think I think who will be his closest competitor? I'm going to say Bottas is going to be his closest competitor again, but the gap would be less than 50 points, maybe less than 30. I'm not sure on that front. Wins, what did he get? He got 11 this year, maybe somewhere between 6 and 7 wins. And
Jesus.
pole position, he only got 5. So I'd imagine a similar sort this year.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows how well Leclerc did with in regards of pole positions. So we both in agreement that Lewis Hamilton is going to be the 2020 world champion.
I think we're both in agreement with that.
Okay, so after next season, we're gonna do this again, and then we'll look back on this year's our predictions, and then we'll see how right or wrong we was. All right.
Where are we through the grid? Is that 11 drivers done? Thank you very much for everyone staying with us this long. We know it's a long one, but hopefully you've enjoyed the chat so far.
Yes. We are currently at Magnussen next.
Cool.
Okay. So Magnussen finished the World Championship in 16th position, got 20 points, got no podiums, and best finish was a 5th position. Take it away, Mike.
Kevin Magnussen, like Roman Grosjean, has had a very frustrating season. Suffered less faults in race with the car than Roman Grosjean did, but was unfortunate more in the second half of the season. I can think of collisions with Daniel Ricciardo while running in the points, the plastic bag incident in Singapore where he had to pit again, and Yeah, it's been it's a difficult one to judge him too harshly or too favourably because of how badly it came. Austria was a fantastic performance from him, securing P5 that day. That was very impressive. Impressive, obviously getting P6 at the start of the season in Australia as well. Again, shows his talent as a driver. And now it's his third season with Roman Grosjean, and he's now beaten him twice within those 3 years in the internal team rivalry. So that's pretty good. A frustrating but yet still promising 2019, I thought it was for Kevin Magnussen.
Yes, I think I think he is not he's got a bit of a undeserved bad reputation. Uh, well, as a bad boy, I don't think he's a bad boy at all. Um, I really like his attitude, and I don't know whether you've listened to his him on Beyond the Grid. Uh,
I have, yep.
I mean, I thought that was absolutely tremendously. I think that was absolutely epic. Um,
I thought you really got to know Kevin Magnussen well, and I know obviously Katie as well. That she loved that kind of in
yeah,
terms of getting to know him. He just comes across as a really good, honest guy, and he's a bit of an old school racer. He
yeah.
just loves racing.
And while we're here, give a massive hello to Katie. Uh, if you're listening to this, Katie, do leave us your comments below. And obviously that doesn't only go for Katie. If you do like what we're talking about, and we're not finished yet, just join the conversation. If you haven't already, do consider to like, comment, and subscribe. I mean, it would help me out massively, but I don't want to come across as begging, but can we get this channel up to 400 before the end of the year? Anyway, that that's enough of that advertising now for my channel. So let's get back to Kevin Magnussen. Um, so do you think um, do you think it's doing him good or bad being at Haas? Obviously, he's been with Roman Grosjean now for 3 years.
Well, interestingly enough, we had Katie onto our fan podcast yesterday, and we were actually talking about this very topic. I think we came to the conclusion that Kevin Magnussen is unlikely to be picked up by any top teams. So he needs to kind of do what Sergio Perez has done, and he's young enough at 27 years old to kind of build Haas around him and hope that they get it together. So his best option is to hope that Haas get it together as a team and become more competitive, and he kind of molds that team in his shape.
Yes, exactly. Um, do you think on an you know looking back, do you think it was a mistake from him to go to McLaren?
Oh, definitely not. It was his first season, so he was given an opportunity. Obviously, he didn't know what we know now, which is it was McLaren on the decline, and he came
Yeah.
up against a very tough teammate, but he didn't necessarily do bad. He got a podium in his first race, and it
Yes.
is still to date his only career podium. So that's nice for him to have.
Yeah. But in terms of, I mean, you've touched on it already. Do you think Haas and the midfield teams is sort of the only teams that gonna look at Kevin Magnussen, or do you think he is gonna have a chance as a top team?
I just think the top teams seem to be quite invested in their driver programs now. Obviously, Red Bull were the trailblazers, but Ferrari have now jumped on this bandwagon a bit. Obviously, they've got Mick Schumacher in F2, Robert Schwartzman. I believe Armstrong's part of it as well. And so they're starting to have a good line of drivers. So the opportunities in Ferrari, obviously Giovinazzi in Alfa Romeo is still a Ferrari junior driver. So that's them. Mercedes have George Russell in the program. They used to have Esteban Ocon.
Yeah.
So teams are investing more in these young drivers programs. So yeah, for me, I just feel as he's not attached to any of them, the external team like a Haas or anyone else in the midfield who are external to any of those teams are his best options.
I think, I mean, if Vettel was to do Rosberg and say, thank you and good night, yeah, I think Kevin Magnussen has a better chance than Roman Grosjean.
Oh yeah, definitely, because he's got age on his side.
Yeah, and I think, I think any driver. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about Haas, or anything like that, but I think any driver would take, or any person for that matter, would take a second, clear second position with a top team like Ferrari, than an equal position with Haas or a midfield team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'd agree with that.
So yeah. So finally, any thoughts that we haven't mentioned about Kevin Magnussen?
2020 is an interesting year for him again. Like when we spoke about Grosjean, heavily reliant on the car that Haas can produce for him. I thought it's been a solid season, despite obviously the difficulties that himself and the team have faced. And again, a bit like Sergio Perez proves he's a very consistent performer in the midfield, and an impressive driver who adds value to Formula One.
Yes, and finally, do you want to tell the listeners and viewers, because I do want to help. We do want to help each other out on each other's channel. So, do you want to tell your listeners when this video is probably going to drop tomorrow, 6 o'clock. But are you planning to release your fan talk at the same time?
So the fan talk, you'll be listening to this, guys, on Friday. So the fan talk would have been released yesterday on Thursday at 6 p.m. And then this is coming to you at 6 p.m. And yeah, if you are in this long to the chat and you've got here, I hope you're enjoying the chat. It's almost like a mini movie, I would describe it as, but I think it's well worth the listen, and it's a really enjoyable chat.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly the most detailed chat about the season on YouTube, I would say.
Yes, I mean currently we are at 2 hours and 22 minutes, and we're not even done yet. So now let's carry on with the comeback, the most miraculous comeback of I think of anybody could have expected. I think nobody expected this. I certainly didn't. I think you know who I'm on about, Mike, didn't you?
Yeah, it's of course Max Verstappen. I mean Pierre Gasly. Gasly.
Robert Kubica.
God, sorry, Robert Kubica. Of course, yes. His
Yes.
overall comeback, yeah, incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Yes. And we did an entire episode on whether his comeback was a success. If you haven't already, do give that a listen. Um, you know, it's somewhere. I'm just it's somewhere on my channel quite recently under collaborations. Do give that a listen. But obviously, he finished in 19th place. Uh, 1 point, uh, one 1 point, 0 podiums, and best finish was a 10th place in the chaotic Hockenheim Grand Prix. So, what? Just give us your um, your thoughts briefly, Mike.
I just think you have to kind of view Robert Kubica's comeback as different. He's been out of the sport, I think, competitively for 7 years, I think it was.
8 years.
8 years. So he was out of the sport competitively for 8 years, and so much has changed since driving in those 8 years. This was a guy who was spoken about by Alonso, by Lewis Hamilton, as one of the most competitive guys that they've ever come up against in a race car. So high praise from two of the best drivers from their generation. Yeah, to come back from that injury to compete in Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport, incredible. Yes, in a terrible Williams car against his rookie teammate, I think it's made him look bad. And a lot of younger fans who don't remember or weren't watching F1 when Robert was taking part would probably have forgotten the talent that Kubica was and just thought that this guy was terrible. But it's more than that. And I think it's no shame losing out to George Russell. It may look bad because it's his first season in F1, but I honestly do think that George Russell is a serious talent. And
Yep.
I, I think he would have beaten a lot of teammates who were in that car that year.
I think. I mean, I'm not gonna say whether it's a success or not. I mean, we did a whole video on it. But I think for him, it was more of a case of can I still do it? Can I still, with my disability, drive a Formula One car? And I think he's put all the doubters to shame by proving that he can. Um, so where what? I mean, obviously he's not going to be in Formula One next year, as far as we know, as a as a um as a full time driver. As a full time driver. But where do you, what do you see him doing in 2020?
I believe he will be racing in DTM with BMW, and I believe he might also be the test driver for Haas.
Well, I've I've heard BMW is pretty likely, but I've heard that he's also in that um, that Racing Point wants him as a development driver.
Yeah, I've heard his development skills are certainly well sought after on the grid. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
So best of luck to him, really, innit?
Best of luck for Kubica, and congratulations on actually making it back and competing in F1, even though it isn't how he would have liked it.
Yeah,
It would have been nice to have seen his comeback in something like maybe a Racing Point or an Alpha, and just see with a more competitive car what might have happened.
Yeah. So any more thoughts on it?
Just that was it really. Robert Kubica, incredible and inspirational coming back like he did. It's a shame it didn't work out as planned, but wish him all the best for the future. He's a real talent, and it's a shame what happened to him, but life throws you those punches sometimes, and what he's overcome to get back to where he is, I have nothing but absolute admiration and respect for Robert Kubica.
Yes. So moving on then, we've got Lance Stroll. Do you want to take it away, Mike?
So, Lance Stroll, difficult year. Moving into a new team where already he's on the back foot because his dad is the owner of the team. So his people are looking at him like you're only there because of your dad, which realistically is the case.
Yeah.
But
me included, too, I must admit. But
yeah, I think if he was backed like a company like Sergio Perez is, I think Lance Stroll at 20 years of age would still be rated as an exciting talent, considering that he's the second youngest driver ever to secure a podium in F1 when he got that podium for Williams in 2017 at the Azerbaijan.
Yeah. I think the other one was Max Verstappen, wasn't it?
Max Verstappen is the youngest, I believe. But his qualifying hasn't been good enough. It's got better in the second half of the season, but Sergio Perez isn't a great qualifier. He always usually sets up for a race day on Sunday. And he's been off that. He had a very good qualifying actually in the last race of the season in Abu Dhabi. He was pretty close to Sergio Perez pace-wise in that. He got a bit unlucky, obviously, was on for looked a good race in Monza when Vettel collided into him, and then obviously had to retire in Brazil when he was running in the points once. The debris from that Vettel and Leclerc incident got clogged in his car. So it's been a okay year for Stroll, but next year kind of feels like make or break for him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just to give you some stats here, he finished the championship in 15th, scored 21 points. As Mike said, he has not scored a podium. However, his best finish this season was a 4th position. So,
that was a very good. He's a very good wet weather driver, and also he made the decision to go on slicks because he was running in nowhere in that race, and then got on the right side at the right time, and it was a very impressive call.
Where was it? It wasn't Hockenheim, was it?
Yeah, it was Hockenheim. He secured 4th.
Yeah. So the kid must have got talent, you know what I mean? But how much do you think he is influenced by his dad owning the team?
I think it influences people's opinion of him a lot more.
Yes.
So suddenly he looks the spoiled rich kid.
Yeah.
Whose dad's paying for everything. So he has to fight that. I don't think he's influenced it at all. I mean, like I said, that video where we spoke about on our challenge of whether can Racing Point be a future contender, Lance Stroll and Lawrence Stroll, I think if Lance isn't performing, Lawrence is a businessman first, and he would go, I've given you every opportunity and you didn't take it. So he's had a year to settle in. Now he needs to kick on, and now he needs to push Sergio Perez within that team, and he needs to have a good year next year.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I agree with everything Mike said there. I just wanna, I just wanna have a give you an anecdote about um about a conversation that I had with somebody on the way to Stoke on the train, and he said um with he said about Lance Stroll. He said um if 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 Lance Stroll wants to be world champion, his dad has to buy Formula One, which I found really harsh.
I think, and I'm guilty of this too. I remember mid-season, I absolutely ripped into Lance Stroll, and I I look back at that, and I now regret that because I feel I was too harsh on him. Yes, he still needs to improve. Is he good enough at the moment? What he's producing isn't good enough. He does need to improve, but he's a guy with talent. He absolutely dominated F3. He skipped F2, so it's still a learning process. And in a new team, he's had a Williams. His two teams have been a Williams that was getting more uncompetitive and uncompetitive. And then he also had a Racing Point that was uncompetitive for the first half of the season, but still managed to get a fourth in Hockenheim with that one. The second half of the season has been disappointing, but when he has raced well, uh, he has been unlucky that he has had to retire or his race was damaged through things out of his control.
Yeah, and I can remember, and if you want to go to the F1 debate shows channel, you can find it, or go onto my channel. Um, because my first my first collaboration with any YouTuber was an episode called Top Top Trumped, and where we discussed whether it was um the right decision for Williams to take Lance Stroll, and I actually was exactly like you. I absolutely ripped into the guy 100%, and I look, and just just few months ago, or might have even been last year. I, no, it was a few months ago. I actually did a video called Lance Stroll Don't Bash Him. Yeah, because I changed my opinion about him so much. It's unbelievable. If you do if you do want to check it out, search my channel for it. But I think, where do you think he's going to be in 2020?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to get from Lance Stroll next year. For him personally, I hope he proves a lot of doubters wrong.
Yeah.
That he is able to perform to a good standard and a good level.
Yes.
Do I see it happening? I don't know. His qualifying is a real issue for me because I said it, I think, recently. If Lewis Hamilton was qualifying every race in like 6th or 7th, it would be a lot more difficult for him to win races, and that's even with a more competitive car to his peers. The midfield is so tightly packed, and the Racing Point was at the lower end of that midfield. If he keeps qualifying poorly, then it just it just makes his job doubly hard. And yeah, it's almost shooting himself in the foot.
Yes. So let's move on then to the next one, which is um, the rookie, my rookie of the year. Uh, can you guess who it was?
Lando Norris.
Lando Norris, indeed. He finished the championship in 11th, scored a total of 49 points, had didn't score a podium, and his best finish was a 6th position. Again, as usual, I let Mike kick you off because he's a visitor, and I'm nice to him. So,
Very kind to me, Raz. Very kind to
yeah.
me. I would say Lando Norris is my season as well, and I'm surprised that he was overlooked by both the FIA and Autosport Awards uh, for this. For me, in that McLaren, he beat his more experienced teammate in Carlos Sainz in qualifying 11-10, which is very impressive in a rookie season. He's had more technical issues to deal with than Carlos
Yes.
Sainz, and I just think when he's had the chance as well, when those McLarens have been near the front at the start of a Grand Prix, he's raced the likes of Lewis Hamilton, he's raced the likes of Leclerc, Verstappen, Vettel, and he's defended, and his racecraft against those guys has looked incredibly impressive. And he's had some really impressive overtakes. I remember his overtake on Vettel. Obviously, Vettel had the damage at Kota, but still, the overtake that Lando Norris did there was hugely impressive going around the outside. And yeah, he's just the way that he's gone about his business, the way that he performs. For me, as much as George Russell, I rate him highly. Lando Norris, you see the talent there in a car that is competitive. You just think, wow, this is a guy that's going to be competing with Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. I think he is world champion material.
I would agree with you 100%. In fact, a lot of people, because I said to you tonight, I said, I think I'll put it out on I think I'll put out a tweet tonight. It says, I, I said, dear Lando Norris, do you fancy meeting up for a drink sometime and talk about Formula One? Yeah. And a lot of people said to me, well, why do you want to meet, why do you want to meet with, um, a rookie of Formula One? But I think he loves his racing. I think he's far um, maturer than his age suggests. He's far more mature than his age suggests. His racecraft is absolutely, uh, you know, his racecraft is absolutely 100% there. He's just had some bad luck. And I must say, his some of his radio messages are absolutely hilarious.
I mean, Lando Norris is brilliant because naturally he is just funny. He doesn't have to try. He just has an infectious personality that you just go, you're brilliant. And I think he's a brilliant fresh air for F1.
And yeah, so he's finished in he's finished in 11th position in 2019. Where do you see him in 2020?
Even better. And I think as impressive as what Carlos Sainz has been, would I be surprised if Lando Norris beats him in the championship next year? I wouldn't. I do honestly rate Lando that highly. I
Yes.
just think he's an incredible talent, and that's not knocking Carlos Sainz. I think Carlos Sainz is a very talented driver, and like I said, the most likelihood is he will beat him. But Lando, yeah, just There's something about him that really excites me as a talent.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go one step further. You might think I'm mad, yeah. Although you think I'm mad anyway. We've
We're
established
both
that.
mad.
We've established that. But I'm gonna say Lando Norris to win a Grand Prix next year.
Win a Grand Prix. Wow. I mean, you you are crazy. He will win Grand Prix in his career. I just think 2020 is too soon. I don't think the McLaren can make the steps needed, to step up.
All it takes is 3 top people, yeah. All it takes is Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Sebastian Vettel, Alex Albon, and all the top people to crash out, yeah, and he's gonna be there to pick up the pieces.
Well, that Raz, I can't wait to see that race next year. that'll be a brilliant race next year. Wow.
Well,
imagine.
I didn't think that Williams would score a point this season.
And it happened with
it happened.
penalties. So yeah, I see your logic.
That's probably the most unlogical thing that I've said so far
Probably
in this review.
As look, 2 hours 45 minutes. It's not bad for your first completely irrational thing to say.
Yeah, I mean, you're my brother anyway. But any final thoughts on Lando Norris?
Incredibly impressive rookie season. Natural pace, great racecraft. 2020 and beyond is a very exciting future.
So let's just see who is next on our roller coaster ride here now, as Lando would say. Max Verstappen. So he finished third in the championship. Scored 278 points, 3 wins, nine podiums, and 2 pole positions. And as usual by now, take it away, Mike.
So Max Verstappen had one of his best seasons, if not his best season, in Formula One ever for me. Securing those 21 consecutive top 5 finishes, carrying on his good form from the back of the 2018 season, going into Hungary. Loved the kind of first battles we've really got between Max and Lewis on track. That's been incredibly brilliant to watch. Austria was a fantastic performance. Hockenheim was a fantastic performance. Brazil was as well. Has still shown some signs of naivety and immaturity. I thought he was too bold on Valtteri Bottas in Mexico. In Spa, it was a confusing move on the first corner. La Source is always a difficult corner, and yet a little bit confusing why he did that. Then in Monza as well, starting from the back was a little bit naivety, but he's not really used to kind of being in those positions where everyone brakes so heavily and goes so slow at the start. So, but overall, it was an incredible season for Max Verstappen. Got the most out of his car and that Honda engine, and I was very impressed by him.
Yes, I must admit I was as well. And another thing that I want to mention, which I found really mature of him, when he scored the first win of the season, he pointed to Honda on his race suit. Yeah, because I
Yep.
think he knows how important that was for Honda, that as well. You know what I mean? Because we always slated them when they were with McLaren and it didn't work out, and
Exactly. And what Honda produced was a terrible engine while they were at McLaren. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it. Well, yeah, it was very mature of him to do that.
Yeah, and I've grown in Max Verstappen has definitely grown on me. Where do you see him in 2020?
Another very good season, but a season he won't be able to compete for the title again because Honda will improve, will get closer, but not close enough, in my opinion.
Does that mean then 2021 he's off to Mercedes?
He has said recently, hasn't he, that the start of the 2020 season will help him decide where his future lies. I don't know. It's Mercedes or nothing because I don't think Ferrari want him.
Interesting.
So he's either got Red Bull or Mercedes, and he'd have to get into Mercedes before George Russell.
And that's never going to happen, is it?
I just think Mercedes probably see George Russell. Mercedes are a very clean image. They're very smooth around the edges, great PR. They say all the right things. George Russell fits that mold of driver perfectly.
Yeah.
He fits what Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen fits the Red Bull kind of almost bad boys reputation. I like it. I thought his only irresponsible comment this year was calling Ferrari cheats with no evidence, or not conclusive enough evidence. They say you can't just make that accusation after one race. I know they thought it'd been happening for a while, but nothing's come out of it. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they
But
clearly weren't cheating.
I think that was because I think Jos did a similar thing.
Josh did.
Yeah, his father Jos. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine he did. I I don't mind him playing mind games with other drivers. I think that's quite good, and it's a spicy character. And I enjoy. Sometimes he just needs to be careful with what he says.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, he's only 22, and he's already got, is it 7 wins?
Max Verstappen in his career.
No, eight wins it is.
Yeah.
8 wins. And when you think about it, yeah, he's 22 years old. Yeah, he's been in Formula One since he was 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was announced at 16 with Toro Russell. The only reason why I know that, so he was announced as a Toro Russell driver on the two on you know, when he was on his just shortly after his 16th birthday. Um. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is he's already had 8 wins, yeah, and he's only 22. Now a lot of past F1 drivers, you know, don't even get that, don't even get one career win in the whole career. So you know what I mean? Um, for example, Ralf Schumacher, he got 6 wins in 180 races, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I was sorry. I was just trying to. I was pausing to try and. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, he's an incredible talent. Yeah. And I think he's come a long way from last year. Because last year he reminded me a bit of the Lewis Hamilton of the Lewis Hamilton of old. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So but the we all say about top teams being Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, yeah, and they are all settled, aren't they? Sort of with drivers, yeah. So what is Max gonna do? Yeah, I mean he's hardly gonna retire after 2020, is he?
exactly. I think for me, he says this, but I feel like it's a contract negotiation tactic to get more money. The best place for Max Verstappen is Red Bull. He has
Yes.
the whole team built around him. Everything works towards Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Uh, he, you know, everything is there to make Max Verstappen's life easier. In 2021, with ground effect coming in more with development on the underside of the car, it could be the kind of intuitive spark that Adrian Newey needs to kind of reinvest his interest. Honda engine could well be up and competitive at that stage. I just think he's not going to get it anywhere better in a top team than what he has there, because if Lewis Hamilton does win 7 world titles next year, for sure, I cannot see him retire at the end. If you were a top level sportsman and you had the chance to, well, you knew you weren't retiring on age, you were retiring because you were leaving the sport. You,
Yeah.
you you wouldn't you wouldn't be able to look at yourself in the mirror, would you, and go, I never tried to be the out and out all time world driver championship champion in terms of titles, would you? So
Uh,
Hamilton would be there,
yeah.
Leclerc's there at Ferrari, and with what he said about Ferrari this year, it wouldn't necessarily be great. So Red Bull is the only place for Max Verstappen, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with you, but coming back on the top team debate, I think that's where Formula One as a whole's got a problem. Yeah, because we talking about Ferrari, um, Red Bull, and Mercedes being the top team. Yeah, like you wouldn't see Max Verstappen going to a Racing Point or even a Williams. It just wouldn't happen. Yeah. So because A, he wouldn't be challenging for wins. B, the teams in themselves are sort of intertwined. You see what I mean? So
Yeah,
so that's that's a genuine problem and a genuine risk for Formula One, I think,
I agree
because
massively.
you know where would he go? Yeah, you know he's got no other option but to stay at Red Bull.
Exactly. He has to.
Yeah. So
The racing points and the Renaults and McLarens are all too big a risks at this stage. He'd be better off staying at Red Bull.
yeah, and I mean, why did Ricardo leave? Because he didn't want to face Max Verstappen.
And also, I didn't think he wanted to be in a team that was built around Max Verstappen anymore. So
Yeah.
that shows that, you know, and Daniel Ricciardo is a very good driver.
Yes. We're coming on to him later in this video. But any final thoughts about Max Verstappen?
Max, just impressive 2019. 2020, can he continue to make the step ups that he's done this year? And very interesting to see where he goes. But I think we both agree that Red Bull is the only place he can go.
Yes. So the next is the most unluckiest driver of Formula One ever. Can you guess who that is?
Are you gonna say Nico Hulkenberg?
Yes. I've got him on my screen now. So 14th in the championship, 37 points, no podiums, and the best finish was a 5th. Do you want to kick off, Mike?
I'll kick off with Nico Hulkenberg. Well, I think I'm one of the few in the community who don't get the hype around Nico Hulkenberg. Yes, he was a very talented GP2 winner. Yes, he's quick and has been, you know, very consistent throughout his career. And it's impressive. Nico Hulkenberg is a good driver, and I think he's a really good bloke as well. And I've no doubts with that. And I feel like, you know, he's been a valuable asset to Formula One. This season hasn't been a great season for him. He finished 14th in the Drivers' Championship, only ahead of the two Williams and Haas, who had awful cars for the season, and Giovinazzi in his rookie year, and Lance Stroll in a Racing Point that struggled in the first part of the year.
Yes.
He also, in terms of a teammate battle, I was really excited. I remember talking to Stephen, my brother, pre-season. I was like, you know what, Ricardo's in trouble here. I really rate Nico Hulkenberg, and yeah, I think, you know, he's going to beat Ricardo, but slowly but surely, Ricardo has taken the dominance within that team and controlled it. And out of all the races where they finished, like both in the points, Ricardo so that's happened on 11 occasions.
Yes.
Ricardo has beaten Hulkenberg in 8 of those occasions. And to be beaten in a team where the maximum points they were really fighting for, bar obviously the Monza incident where they got 4th and 5th, they were usually fighting around the 4 to 1 point mark. I think
Yes.
Ricardo beat him by 18 points, which is quite a big margin, I think, in the end. He hasn't absolutely blitzed or whitewashed him out the way, but I think it's certainly a season that Holcomb would be disappointed with. And if it's a season that he's pressing people, I think, you know, he hasn't impressed enough to keep his seat in F1.
Yes. And yeah, I think he is the most unluckiest bloke in Formula One. Cracking personality. Always had a laugh and a joke with the media. Um, I don't know whether you've followed Kim Illman, the photographer guy in on YouTube.
Yep.
He did a video, Goodbye Nico Hülkenberg or something,
Yeah.
where he did some cracking anecdotes, and I can remember some cracking anecdotes him and Lee Mackenzie had, when they was still on Channel 4 all the time. Um, so he was great with the media, and I would love to meet him, yeah, just to have a beer with and chat like we're doing now about his career. Um, but he's the most unluckiest bloke, especially he his best chance of getting the podium would have been was the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim, and I was absolutely gutted for him.
I think, yeah, he is unlucky, and that within more competitive cars, what might he have done? We don't know. Do I think Nico Hulkenberg is a talent that has underachieved? Yes. What do I think the maximum was his hope? Maybe he could have done a Nico Rosberg and won a championship one year, but I don't think he's a guy on the level of the Sebastian Vettels, Lewis Hamiltons, Max Verstappen's, or Charles Leclerc's of the world. I don't think he's as good as that. And at the same time, I have to say there's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes in careers. If Sebastian Vettel had gone to Mercedes and been at Mercedes in 2014 to 2019, like Lewis Hamilton, instead of Lewis, would we now be talking about Sebastian Vettel already beating Michael Schumacher's records? The same with kind of Fernando Alonso if he'd picked the right teams.
Yeah,
If Sergio Perez had gone to partner Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, could he maybe have had a world championship? There's a lot of drivers that you can go ifs, buts, and maybes, and you've got to make your own like an F1. And the
yeah,
opportunities that Nico has in F1, he hasn't taken, and that's the harsh reality to me. Like you said, I think he's a cracking bloke. I think he is a really good personality. I enjoy watching him talk. He always seems to come down to earth. He seems quite good on that front. I'm not criticising him as a person at all, and I think he is a good driver. I just don't think he's as good a driver as what everybody else thinks, because it would have shown in 10 years.
the thing is, and I know that I like Nico Hülkenberg, yeah, but I agree with you on the fact that why does because he earned $5.4 million last year, like this year, approximately. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think that the likes of Daniel Kvyat or George Russell or Gasly, yeah, or even Perez, they have all got podiums, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I'm not very much mistaken, well, from what I remember, I think I just did a video about driver salary, and if I'm not very much mistaken, Kvyat only earns $300,000 or something.
It might be something like that. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it wouldn't be great being at
No,
Toro Rosso.
but what I don't understand is what makes Nico think, or what made him think that he is deserving of uh, a few million when he hasn't even had a podium.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why that. Only if you ask Nico in your chat you'll have with him. Only you'll know on that front of things. I think it's because of experience, and he knows within a team, you know what you can get from Nico Hulkenberg. He can show he's got a consistent CV, and like I said, he brings that consistency and reliability to a team. But
Yeah.
outside of that, you're not really going to get any fireworks or lit up with Nico Hulkenberg. And yeah, just for me, like I said, there's plenty of ifs, buts, and maybes in loads of people's careers. But when he's had the opportunities for podiums, yes, some of them have been unlucky in his case. But you look at Hockenheim this year, prime example, and it was his driver mistake that allowed him not to finish that race. And
Yes.
you know, you've got to be able to take those opportunities, and that's what separates you from the rest. And
Yes.
he's just fallen into a career where very talented driver, and I think he'll be very good in other series. In like a World Endurance Championship, I think he would be a fantastic driver. I don't think he's ready to do that route yet. He doesn't seem like it by the way that he speaks. But I would maybe, if I was him, say goodbye to F1. So I've had 10 good years and see what I could do somewhere else and see what I can be as a competitor somewhere else.
Where do you think he's going to be in 2020?
He's going to be in and around the F1 paddock trying to secure a seat for 2021. That is what I see of Nico Hulkenberg's year next year. He wants to stay relevant and he wants to be back in F1 because he said it doesn't feel like he's leaving F1 at the end of this season. But I'm not entirely sure who's going to take him.
Well, I've had, I've had I've had two things I want to mention in, the first thing is that I did a poll, like, on Twitter, and I think it was 66% wanted Alonso back in 2021, and the rest wanted Nico Hülkenberg back. Yeah. Now, now, Nick, from what I gathered, Nico Hülkenberg said that he doesn't want to do a development driver or simulator driver job anymore. Yeah. But one of my followers said that he might end up with a new outfit. But then again, the FIA have said there won't be any new outfits in 2021.
Exactly. I can't see the way that they've spoken about it. They're very firm in saying, I would love to see a new outfit come in
Yeah.
2021. And I'm not sure what they are against it, but they seem very adamant against no new teams will be in 2021. 2022 and beyond is a different story, but 2021 is a no. So that's unlikely. And yeah, if we're honest here, I mean, you know my thoughts on it. If it was a choice between
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso and Nico Hulkenberg, well, Fernando Alonso is they're not comparable in terms of talent. Fernando Alonso is just one of the best drivers to grace Formula One. Poor decision maker in terms of the teams that he went to, but a very, very talented driver, one of the best in modern F1.
Yes.
Nico Hulkenberg doesn't even match him on that front.
Yeah. So, final thoughts on Nico Hülkenberg? I reckon he's going to be in DTM or LMP1.
I'd like to see him in those. I really would. I really like to see how he'd do, and I'd be fully supportive of him, and I'd want to see him do well. Final thoughts is it's been a career that has showed promise, has showed consistency, but ultimately has failed to live up to what many people hoped it might be. And yes, they can blame other situations, but you have to point the blame at Nico ultimately for that. He hasn't given enough performances for people to want to give him a chance. I'm interested to see what the future holds. I think he could be one of the very talented drivers outside of F1. And I would love him to go down that route because I think he would be very happy there and he would also achieve a lot of success.
Sometimes I think if you go to another chapter, then you'd be more successful. I can see him, for example, going back to Porsche with and in the LMP1. I don't see him in DTM, but I definitely see him back in WEC because he's already won the Le Mans. You see, so I think he's definitely got talent there, but I just think he wasn't able to um get it, extract it out of himself in Formula One. So let's move on to the next driver, who is Gasly. So what's your thoughts on Gasly?
Pierre Gasly, incredibly frustrating first half of the season in a car that massively didn't suit him in his only second season in F1 was suffered from being second fiddle to Max Verstappen and having a massively different driving style to him. And he couldn't get any sort of performance out of that Red Bull, and his performances weren't good enough and deserved to be dropped. In the second half of the season, absolutely superb in terms
Yes,
of how he took that motivation, his performances. Daniel Kvyat, who was doing so well in that Toro Rosso, he's well and truly beaten him. And getting that second place in Brazil, mightily impressive. Really, really impressive. And yeah,
yeah,
just I, I I'm so happy for him because he must have been in such a low moment in the
yes,
summer, and he's turned it around and he's improved. And yeah, I just think it was incredibly mature performances and really impressive. And he's unlucky that if he didn't have the incident with Stroll in Abu Dhabi, I think he probably would have secured sixth in the constructors. Oh,
yes.
sorry, drivers' championship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I think he got a lot of slack, a lot of he got the brunt of Helmut Marko yet again.
Yep.
I think he was treated unfairly. Um, you know, People are gonna think that I'm bashing Helmut Marko, but I think the way they went about it was wrong. I think, despite the fact, yeah, that he got left by his teammate twice, it's unacceptable. Yeah, it was unacceptable, and I would have demoted him as well. Yeah, back to Toro Rosso, but I wouldn't have said to him, "Oh, your seat is safe till the end of the season." Yeah, and then a week later say to him, "Oh, you're going back to Toronto. You're going back to the Russell." I wouldn't have done that, and I think he's come he's come back alive in the Toro Rosso because I think that second place was absolutely tremendous.
It was an incredible performance, great consistency, and took advantage of the Lewis and Albon collision and defended the position well. Going on to the main straight was good. He squeezed Hamilton right on the edge of the track and fought for that second place tooth and nail. And yeah, was brilliant. I agree with you. I think he was right to be demoted. We've both agreed on that. What he did in the Red Bull car was not good enough for Red Bull. But how they treated him and how they didn't even acknowledge when he got P2 in Brazil, they were like, it's how he's dealing with being in a team with less pressure. No, it's how he's dealing with a team that isn't centered around Max Verstappen. It works Red Bull, Max Verstappen in terms of trying to make a world champion, but it means that other drivers suffer. And Pierre Gasly has certainly been one of those drivers very poorly treated. And for me, looking ahead to 2020, he'll be wanting to have a strong season with Toro Rosso and then moving on to a midfield team, maybe like a Racing Point, a Haas, um, maybe Renault or McLaren, if any stuff opens up in terms of their spots or seats, and be looking to build a midfield team rather than stay with Red Bull. I think his ties with Red Bull will be done.
Yeah, and I just want to jump onto his defense here, like onto Gasly's defense here, because I've seen in a lot of, I don't know whether you've seen it as well, but there are people, I can't believe that there was people out there suggesting that Lewis Hamilton went went off the gas on on the straight.
I
Like,
just
did you hear
I
about that?
don't I heard about it, and then when you initially saw it, I can see where people think he goes slower, but to think Lewis Hamilton, a six-time world champion, would do that and devalue it, and also try and devalue Pierre Gasly's second place like that, I think it's harsh. Just appreciate what the achievement was. Don't look into things like that. Don't look into Hamilton let him have second place.
Yeah,
It was
I'm,
incredible drive.
I mean, I'm not doing that. You know, that's why I said I'm defending him, right?
Right, yeah,
Because,
I know.
cause,
It was more in answer to those people.
yeah, because like it was like I, you know, this guy had a had the, because fair enough, maybe his maybe it was too early. Yeah, it clearly was. Yeah, but
Yeah,
but when you think about it, he scored more points and finished higher up than Albon did.
exactly.
So here's the question for you: What are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? What are they gonna do if So what are they gonna do if if Gasly um does a better job in the in the Toro Rosso next year than Albon does?
Well, he will, because Albon won't be in a Toro Rosso. But I think he's already proved this year that he did a better job in that Toro Rosso than what Albon did.
Yeah,
Uh, um,
but what I'm saying is, if he he's got currently he's in the seventh position in a Toro Rosso finishing off, yeah. Gasly is, yeah, and
yep,
he scored 95 points. He scored one podium. His best finish was a second place. what I'm saying is, what if Albon doesn't get a podium next season, or gets less points in a Red Bull than Gasly does in a Toro Rosso? Are they going to switch them around again, or what?
The only way I can ever see Pierre Gasly going back to Red Bull is if Max Verstappen leaves. And we already think that Max Verstappen's not going to leave.
Yeah.
So therefore, they may want him, but I hope Pierre Gasly goes no and moves somewhere else.
Yeah. So,
Because I don't think they will give Pierre Gasly a fair shot in Red Bull unless Max Verstappen leaves.
So what do you think Red Bull are gonna do if Albon doesn't deliver?
I don't honestly know. Because unfortunately they're in that situation where they've alienated drivers.
Exactly.
Internally in the program. Kvyat, I still think is probably the best option and would get the best performance, but they've treated him so poorly. I doubt he would be. You'd see him in a Red Bull seat again. So
Yeah.
maybe Nico Hulkenberg gets a seat back in 2021 through there, or Fernando Alonso gets a seat back in 2021 through there, but they'd more likely go Nico because Nico would be a number 2 to Max Verstappen.
Yes.
But I don't know.
But you see where I'm coming from with, Red Bull are really in a pickle here. You know what I mean?
They are. I think very, very good team, but how they have managed the drivers who aren't Max Verstappen isn't great. Maybe a Sebastian Vettel return, you don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, have we got any more to say about Gasly?
No, just incredibly impressed by the mental strength he showed to come back in 2019, and I'm excited what he does in the Toro Rosso in 2020.
All right, so let's go to the next one. Kimi Räikkönen. 12th. Yeah, 12th in the championship. 43 points. And no podiums. And best finish is a 4th position. Do you want to kick off, Mike?
Pretty good first half of the season. Then the Alpha performance dropped off in the second part of the year. 4th in Brazil was a fantastic result for Alfa Romeo and Kimi Räikkönen. Very close to a podium there. It's difficult really to say too much other than that. It was a mixed year. It's a very good year. It proved that Kimi still has talent. Single-handedly pretty much got Alfa Romeo 8th in the constructors and beat Nico Hulkenberg and Daniel Kvyat in the driver standings, which is pretty impressive.
Yes.
Again, Kimi Räikkönen is one of the most talented drivers on the grid, and with going into 2020 is one of the 3 drivers who've driven in the past 3 decades in F1, which is a pretty impressive record to have.
And I do believe he's going to become the most experienced Formula One racer in terms of races. I think the current one, isn't it? Ruiz Barrichello with 322 races.
Yep. Kimi Räikkönen will pass and be the guy who's competed in the most Grand Prix ever next season if he competes in every race.
Yes. I think he's had a stunning season. I think he enjoys his racing again. If if the if the some drivers would have been penalised for using DRS and the yellow flags in Brazil, um, he would have got a podium for um, Alpha, but obviously that didn't happen. But considering his age, um, he still loves his Formula One, and he loves his racing more than ever now.
Yeah, Kimi is just an old school guy. Old school guy who loves racing. Doesn't love everything that goes around racing. He loves racing, and Alpha is the environment that allows him to just concentrate on that. To just be like, you know what? I love racing. I'm just going to race. And he's still very good at it. Still one of the best on the grid.
So, where do we see him in 2020?
Wherever Kimi Räikkönen wants to be. If the car is competitive with Alpha and it shows signs of improvement, I can see him wanting to stay and maybe even give the 2021 rules and regulations a shot and see if he can be competitive up nearer the top end. If it's a rubbish year with loads of reliability issues and stuff, I can see him going, this isn't fun anymore. I'm going to walk away.
Okay, so we both think that he's going to stay and see out his current contract, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. He will start next year. He will go. It's the question for me is whether he continues beyond that.
Okay. Any final thoughts on him?
Not really much on Kimi Räikkönen. Just a solid season by the Iceman.
So we coming close to the end now. I think the
It's
next
the
one.
last driver.
No, we've got two more.
Two more.
I do believe three. Um, three.
Well
Three more.
well done, guys. We are almost there.
Oh, but let's do Giovinazzi. Let's do Daniel Ricciardo now. Yes. So Daniel Ricciardo finished the championship in ninth. In ninth position, scored 54 points, no podiums, and best finish was the fourth position. Best finish was the fourth position. So, do you want to kick off, Mike?
Yeah. Daniel Ricciardo, I think he had a pretty good first season at Renault. Again, plagued a little bit by reliability issues, but that's Daniel Ricciardo and Renault engines for you. Although obviously not all were engine related. Considering he's come from a top 3 team into a team that are pushing to drive from the top, who didn't get their car development quite right compared to McLaren at the start of the year, finishing 9th, only behind 2 guys who had half a season at Red Bull and the McLaren of Carlos Sainz, was a pretty impressive effort for me. Like I said earlier, when talking about Nico Hulkenberg, I thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was. But Daniel has kind of pretty much controlled that team. He speaks very positively about the team. He looks settled. The second half of the season was a lot stronger, and was kind of positive going into 2020 for me.
Yes, I think he did absolutely. I think it was a bit of a shock for him as to how I wouldn't like to say uncompetitive, but I would, as to how how difficult the transition has been from Red Bull to Renault in terms of obviously with Red Bull he could be at fight at the front more, but I think he's took on the challenge well. Um, I'm not entirely sure whether he's gonna be there beyond 2020, which is which is the time when his current contract ends. But yet again, I'm not too sure whether Renault is going to be in Formula One beyond 2021, beyond 2020. I mean, so
I think they will be.
yes,
Everything they've done behind the scenes in terms of the development they're putting in, the rearranging of their technical staff, signing Ocon on a contract longer term than 2020. Obviously, Daniel Ricciardo's does run out next year, but yeah, look, Renault seemed like a team in it for the long run, and Mark, when we spoke about the F1 Worldwide podcast, actually made quite a good point in terms of nothing has come from Renault about them leaving. It's been about kind of the media saying that they might leave. Renault themselves have always maintained that it is they will continue in the sport beyond 2020.
okay. So if that is the case, then do you think Daniel Ricciardo will stay longer than his current contract is?
Not sure. If a big team comes knocking, like a Ferrari, unlikely Red Bull again, unless Max Verstappen leads, or Mercedes come knocking, I think unlikely these situations, but you don't know how it's going to play out. I think if they were, especially Ferrari, because he's very popular with Ferrari and has Italian heritage in his family,
Yep.
that would be the one that takes me away. If not, I feel he'll stick it out with Renault and see what he can achieve for them.
So, how long do you think it's going to be before we see him on the podium again?
No idea. If I'm being honest with you, Renault have the pedigree to compete. Um, they're doing all the right things behind the scenes. They've got two very talented drivers on their roster. I'm going to be very interested to see how this one goes.
So, what do you think? I mean, we must mention the um, the gearbox infringement.
No, it was the steering wheel, wasn't it, on the
Oh
braking
yeah,
bias.
yeah. So that robbed them of the best team result, didn't it?
No, because their best team result was Monza, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
And
But
so
that
Suzuka was a struggle there.
yeah. But the thing is, what I'm saying is, they might have had a chance with had they not been disqualified because of Suzuka. They might have had a chance of beating McLaren.
I think very unlikely because Nico Hulkenberg didn't really have the beating of either of the McLarens through the season, really. And Daniel Ricciardo wouldn't have scored enough points by himself. I I think Renault had a stagnating year. It's going to be really interesting to see how they kick on in 2020.
Okay, so do you, like on the whole, do you think he enjoyed the year, or do you reckon he absolutely hates it and wants to go back to Red Bull?
I think he knew what it was going to be, but I think it was worse than what he expected. I think he's enjoyed the challenge. Now that he's ridden it out, this would be the worst season. And I think he feels, with how he influences things and everything, that the only way is up from here.
Yes. So we can only be positive about Daniel Ricciardo, eh? Um,
Yeah, I think it was a very positive first season for him.
yes, but I tell you what, I am gonna miss the 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 banter between um him and Nico Hülkenberg. That that's just, I don't know whether you've seen the clips that
No, they did have a very good relationship, and the stuff that they did together was very good. Obviously, they were both a similar sort of age, so it kind of reminded me of a bit of a Kimmy and Seb relationship. It was quite funny in that aspect. But yeah, it was good. Although obviously no one can be like Kimmy.
nobody can be like him. I mean, but I wouldn't mind seeing Ricardo doing another three. By the way, if you
That
are
would be
if you are from Australia, and can tell me whether it is actually um, an Australian thing, or whether it was just something that Daniel Ricciardo came up with because he's a bit of a fruitcake. Do let me know, all right? Because I don't know what to make of it, all right? But any final thoughts on Ricciardo?
uh, tough, challenging first year in Renault. Showed signs of improvements, especially in the second half of the year. Exciting to see what Renault do in 2020.
Okay, so now drum roll. We're getting we're getting the final one. Which
We've
one?
made we've made it, Raz.
Yes. So can you can you work out who it is?
It's Antonio Giovinazzi,
No,
is it not?
no, it's Vettel.
Oh God, we did Gio. Of course it was.
Yes,
Sebastian Vettel. How could we have forgotten Vettel? How could I have forgotten
yes.
Vettel?
Um, short memory. I'm the one that should have the short memory because you're a lot younger than me. But anyway,
Clearly, I just struggled, Raz. Oh,
but but just just on that note, I just want to tell you a bit of an anecdote that or a response to a tweet from that Katie gave me. I said, um, you know, because I'm a lot older than you, and you know, because I feel I feel like I'm a lot older than you, and I'm past it, and because I'm 35, yeah, and you were 23, aren't you?
no, 26.
Are you 26?
I am.
So you're not that fat, you know, but still there's there's about 9 years between us. Um, but Kate, she said, if if I think I'm old, then she must be over the hill. Because which I found really funny. Um,
You
but
never
anyway,
ask a lady.
yeah. But anyway, let's just to Sebastian Vettel. So he finished the championship in 5th position, 240 points, 1 win, 9 podiums, and 2 pole positions. Do you want to kick us off and give you your opinion? Give us your opinion on Sebastian Vettel, Mike.
So Sebastian Vettel has had a very tough year. Certainly not a year he'll remember fondly. Almost went the entire season without a race win. Singapore was a fantastic performance by him. I thought a really good drive, was a fantastic outlet to take the lead in Singapore. Sochi, he drove well. Canada drove well, bar the mistake, which cost him the win there. He wasn't happy with this car, and like I said, he was competing with one hand behind his back. When you're competing against guys who have a car finely tuned towards them, and the Ferrari wasn't finely tuned towards him, then you're already starting at a disadvantage. Yes, he can adapt to the car, but you're not going to get the maximum best performance if it isn't built perfectly around him. And that car definitely wasn't perfectly built around Sebastian Vettel. Struggled with the relationship with Charles Leclerc. Off track, I thought it was brilliant. On track, I think they struggle. They've had their moments or two, and a year that he'll soon want to forget and put behind him and have a successful 2020.
Yes, agree with you. I think he's definitely been put in his place by Charles Leclerc. I think he didn't expect it. And I think he didn't expect to get beaten so so drastically, so convincingly. I mean, I think it was a wake up call. I think this could go 2 ways. I think he either could do a Nico Rosberg and walk away from the sport, or he's gonna go out and try and decimate Charles Leclerc in 2020.
I think it is going to be the second one, personally.
Yes, I agree with you. Having said that, and again, if we have congratulated Kvyat and Kelly on getting on the birth of their first child, we must congratulate Sebastian and Hannah on their third child. So congratulations from me. Yeah, but I think he, he Sebastian Vettel is more than likely going to be his last season at Ferrari next year.
I would agree with that. Leclerc's the future, and Vettel, he's got one last chance to win that romantic title that he always wanted. I think he wouldn't mind. I think he'd accept that Lewis is a better driver than him. I think he would just love to go out and get one last title, and that title to be at Ferrari.
Yes, and I think he was under so much pressure from the start, from when he first joined Ferrari. Um, I'm gonna make an admission here. I I I thought it was always bound to fail.
I don't know if I always thought he was going to fail. I I think for long times I thought he would be successful. Um, it just hasn't worked out that way. Vettel and Ferrari just haven't quite gelled.
Yeah, but I tell you why I thought it was always bound to fail. Yeah. Um, he is from Germany, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. He lives in the same, or he lives 5 kilometers away from Kerpen. Yeah, might be 10 kilometers. Yeah, but only a stone throw away from where Michael Schumacher lived. Yeah, he, they were, they are best friends. Yeah, and when, as soon as the secret was out that Vettel was gonna join Ferrari, that they made all these comparisons. Oh, he's gonna be the next person to uh, get 5 titles with Ferrari. So the pressure was already on him, and I just think he cracked under pressure.
well, you can't really argue with it because he hasn't won a single world title in his time at Ferrari. And some of that has been down to Ferrari and the car that they've produced. But then also you can say some of that has been down to Sebastian Vettel. And, you know, he's had his opportunities. The car might not have been perfect. But yeah, at the end of the day, it just hasn't worked out how Sebastian would hoped. But he might still get that desired world title that he wants next year. If
Yeah.
Ferrari give him the car, I think he's still capable of doing it.
So so yeah, I think outside of Formula One, like this year, he's been absolutely cracking. Like, he's such a kind and thoughtful guy. I know, especially when he did the tribute to the 2 people we've lost, or even 3 people we lost. Um,
Mm.
Antoine Hubert, Nicky Lauda, and
Charlie White.
Charlie Whiting. I think he did an amazing tribute, and I think he is a very genuine, nice guy, and I think it doesn't always come across on track. Um, I think he sometimes he doesn't do himself any favors when he loses it like that. But off
I
track,
would. Oh, sorry, I'll let you carry on.
I would say he's a very uh, emotionally driven and very kind-hearted bloke.
I would say I can't understand why anyone would dislike Sebastian Vettel as a human being. And anyone who judges a driver by what they say or do on track, I don't get it because they're all incredibly competitive individuals. They always stay stuff and heat at the moment. You could pretty much go through 1 to 20 on the grid, and I bet they've all said something heated or kind of stupid
Yep.
in their remarks on track. You could go through past grids and do exactly the same. In the moment where they are competing, they get lost. You know, they're trying to compete, they're putting their life on the line for these sort of things. They're going to be there. What you look at is Sebastian Vettel away and in normal mode. And Sebastian Vettel is just one of the most kind hearted, human beings on the grid and a real asset to the sport, I think.
Yeah, and I think we should. I mean, although I did a video about whether he's one of the greats, um, I think I think as a person, there's massive respect between him and Lewis. I think the media doesn't always do it justice in terms of they're trying to they're trying to say that there's the animosity between the two of them, but actually there isn't.
No, there isn't at all.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts?
Sebastian Vettel, tough, challenging year. A year that will define his time at Ferrari in terms of 2020. He will either fizzle out and his time would have been a complete failure, or he will have one last almost heroic charge at a title next year where he may topple Lewis off his crown. I'm interested to see where it goes either way. Personally, as a kind of romantic, I expect Lewis to do it, but I'd like Vettel to do it because I would love to see him get his title at Ferrari.
Okay. I think I think we wrap it up there. I would just like to say a massive thank you to everyone that's still listening and that's been sticking with us for all this time. And yeah, and cheers for you, Mike, for sticking with me for just just under 4 hours. And it's
It's
been a
been a marathon,
blast.
but it's been enjoyable.
It's been a marathon, but it's been enjoyable. I'll try and get that edited for 6 o'clock on Friday. If you haven't already, do head over to Mike's channel and show his channel some love, just as much as he shown mine some so much support. And I love these graphics, and I couldn't I couldn't do I couldn't have done half the job you did with the graphics. So cheers for that, Mike. And
No problem at all, Raz.
don't forget, guys, me and me, Mike, and a lot of other YouTubers will be recording a kind of Christmas special quiz on the 15th, isn't it, Mike?
It is the 15th, and then the quiz will be coming out. There's 5 rounds, so there'll be one video every day of Monday to Friday next week of it. So we're really excited to have that on. There's obviously Raz, there's Aldas, there's Chazza, there's the F1 debate show, and there's Mark, who's appeared on our channel before. And so, yeah, hopefully it's going to be a fantastic quiz and a fantastic chat. Should be a good bit of fun for the Christmas holidays. But guys, can't say support Raz enough. Been absolutely fantastic doing this. It has been a marathon effort, but it's just been a really enjoyable chat with you, Raz. And yeah, loved it and loved kind of having a really great chat about F1 and the season that we've just had. And really looking forward to 2020. The winter break can't end soon enough.
Because I was thinking, shall I do it myself or shall I do it with Mike? And I think it was another one of these moments where I phoned you up at midnight and said, "Oh, by the way, you're coming on my season review." So thank you for being so obliging. Um, I've absolutely loved it, and I'm just glad. I'm just can't wait. I just can't wait to see how many people actually watch the whole 5 hours. Um, but if you did enjoy, guys, do leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And me and Mike will see or speak to you soon. All right, guys. Cheers. Bye for now. Bye.